Welcome to this February meeting of the Social Work Services Committee. I'd like to welcome you all to the meeting and remind you all that the meeting will be recorded and the recording will subsequently be available to the public for listening. Sederunt and Apologies, Mr. Haswell.
All members present and correct.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Dempster.
Councillor
Yeah.
Is he coming later, Jock, or is he? No. Okay, no. Thank you. We want any declarations of interest? John?
It's just to note, Chair, that my father's currently on a low package care, but I don't think it'll affect anything that I have to say today.
No, that's fine, thank you. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we go on. I'd like to firstly welcome Cameron Ravey and Margaret Kerr from PwC to the meeting. It's the first thing. The other thing, with your leave and your agreement, I would like to slightly amend the running order. Take item 4 as is, followed by item 6, and then followed by item 5. And get the two finance ones together, and then the issue of the ARCs separate after that. Okay? Rather than have to refocus the mind all the way through. Okay? And also, there's obviously very great public interest in the food crisis. So I've arranged for the committee to have a briefing after the close of business from on the supply of meat to the various establishments commissioned by Social Work Services. It will not be part of the formal meeting, but there is a briefing paper, and if any member from the back of that wants to ask any detailed questions, either to do it through the commissioning team or through DG First, one or the other. Okay, but that'll be immediately at the end of the main business. Okay. Okay. The minutes of the meeting the 13th of December. We agreed? Okay, thank you. Move on to item 4. This is a review of the external audit of financial and business management arrangements in social work services. It's the report of the Director of Chief Executive Service, and item 4 is the report from PwC on a review of the financial and business management arrangements within social work services. I would just like to make it absolutely clear to members, the media, and most importantly the staff, that the day-to-day delivery of social work provision is not under scrutiny today. That professional scrutiny, quite rightly, is an ongoing process and is the responsibility of the Care Inspectorate. I'd like to take this opportunity to emphasise that the social care delivered by the service is of a consistently high standard, at times is exemplary, with particular areas of good practice being recognised nationally. And that needs to be recognised. What was reviewed by PwC was how the social work service runs its business and finances, with particular reference to senior management input. Mr. Haswell has already advised me that he has nothing to add to his covering report, and I'll ask Mr. Ravey if he has anything to add. Following from that, I'll give the Director the opportunity to make any comment, and then we'll open up for full debate to members. Okay? Mr. Ravey first.
Chair, if I briefly summarise what the report was about and what we said within that report for members, if I may, perhaps 5 minutes, no more than that. The work was undertaken in the period June to August last year, 2012, first reported in September 12 and finalised in November 12, and that's the sort of timing. We were looking at effectively arrangements as they were over the summer period of last year. As the Chair has said, and I'll perhaps reiterate that as well, it related to the financial and business management processes rather than what I would describe as specialist social work processes and delivery. That's quite an important matter to keep in mind. Our findings are summarised within the report, pretty much in the executive summary, which is contained in pages 3 to 5. And what that is in summary form is saying is that improvements were needed in a number of areas. The first of these being the shorter-term business planning, with a need for a greater focus on actions and more transparent measurement. The need for more effective team working and engagement at a senior manager level. There was also a need for a more critical assessment of the underlying budget assessment in terms of the social work department, and a marked improvement was needed around budgetary and cost control, and that's both centrally and in the devolved structure. There was also a need to assure the accuracy and more effective use of the department's social care and joint working system, known as Framework I. And finally, the final point was a need to address features of the culture in the department to ensure that going forward there was a clearer alignment with the council's strategy and values, and that good, consistent business decisions are made going forward. Chair, that's how I'd like to summarise. Of course, happy to take any questions that you or your fellow members may have.
Thanks, Cameron. Director?
Thank you very much, Chair. I think the first thing I think I'd like to say is that as Director, I very much welcome the external auditors' report. The auditors have produced a very helpful analysis. They've made some constructive criticisms of aspects of our financial and business management arrangements. And in highlighting those areas for improvement, that's been very helpful in allowing myself and my senior colleagues to identify the things that we need to do to put things right. The second appendix to the report at item 4 sets out a range of actions which have been taken by the social work service management team, and includes a column with a statement of progress against each of those actions. We have ensured that we've taken early action. The final report from the external auditors was dated November. The action plan dated January reflects a huge amount of detailed work done by my senior management team and with support from other parts of the council in the period between November and January. We are absolutely committed as a service to taking the findings of the report forward and making the necessary improvements in order to ensure that our financial and business management arrangements are improved as they need to be. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a number of hands up straight away here, and I appreciate there'll be more than one question is going to get asked as we work our way through here. So we'll do this business-like. In the order, hands it up. I've got Councillor Tate, Carruthers, McKee. I will then go to first-time speakers to make sure that everyone gets a fair crack at the whip here, and then come back around again second time. Obviously, if there's a direct follow-on, you can get one direct follow-on, and then we'll do that, and then, or else we'll just be jumping about all over the place here. Okay, so let's try and follow a strand if we can. Okay, Councillor Tate was first. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Can I ask the Director if he agrees with the findings in the report?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Carruthers.
Thanks, Chair. And on the back of that, in the light of the findings of this report, does the Director consider that he and his management team will be able to meet the challenge of health and social care integration?
Director.
I am confident that the management team will be able to meet that challenge. It's one of just a number, as members will be aware. There is change on a number of fronts in relation to social work services. Health and social care integration is one. There's a report a little bit later on the agenda around community justice arrangement. A little bit further into the future, children and family services will be impacted on by the Children and Young People Bill, which is making its way through the Scottish Parliament. And of course, there's also the broader impact of welfare reform and the implementation of welfare reform, all of which will have an impact on how we do our business. We as a management team are focused on all of those significant areas of change, and we're confident that we can address those, make the right arrangements to allow us to continue to provide good quality services to the most vulnerable of our fellow citizens.
Thank you. Councillor McKee.
Thanks, Chair. The first issue I'd like to raise is the lateness of the papers. There's 190 pages in this paper and we didn't get to Saturday, and that's really not acceptable with all due respect. We could have done it 2 days earlier rather than 2 days later, because there's a lot of information in here that we need to be able to read and digest properly, and a single reading doesn't always enable you to do that. So I hope you take that on board. Getting to the report itself, obviously this is a devastating report and shows that despite the hard work of frontline staff, he'd debate whether we have a department that's fit for purpose. There's a lack of leadership and absolutely no political direction whatsoever. So although we can criticise the management, I think the administration has a lot to answer for over the period of this report. We're at this situation where can we have any confidence that the action plan will deliver a balanced budget? For the past few months we've had reports on what action has been taken to bring the budget into line.
Excuse me, Councillor. It's questions for the report writer, no political statement at this moment in time. You have time for that after. Have you a question for Mr Ravy or for the Director?
Well, with all due respect, Chair, there's a lot of issues in here that need to be discussed, whether they're based as questions or how they're based. As I say, you've got so many papers in here, and if we went through page by page, we'd be here all day. And with all due respect, I've got other meetings, I'm sure other people have as well during the day. So, if you didn't mind, I'd rather go through my comments than just ask questions, because it's a long-term thing, this. It's got to be addressed over the long term, and how we're addressing these issues, and it maybe doesn't always just refer to social work. It's maybe another department of the council, or how we as councillors get information from the council to make decisions. And we believe that the report has wider implications for other departments as well. And one of the key criticisms is that budgets are simply set based on historical financial information. That is what we spent last year. And every department's the same. The main reason for social work is more exposed is partly because of the demand-led nature of the service, and we've got to recognise that, and the fact that fluctuations are more likely. For years now, the Labour group have called for changes to the budget setting process. We spend all our time looking at how we make cuts and no time looking at how we spend the budget. At full council in February this year, we proposed that the budget setting process for next year started now, and the first thing that should happen is that all service committees not only be asked to agree their budget for the year ahead, but this process should involve proper scrutiny of the budgets. For example, the ABB information should be provided and a detailed item-by-item presentation be made by officers on each spending line, and clear direction be given on any variations in spending. When the ABB information was presented last year, one of our councillors said it's up to groups to scrutinise and it's not the committees and administration for them to scrutinise. And the snag is, the same administration sits at committees and never asks questions.
Okay.
We should be guiding, with due respect here.
No, I'm sorry, you've had your say. I'm moving on to the next speaker because it's a political statement you're making. You're not asking questions.
With due respect, it's no political
sorry, I'm moving on.
Here,
sorry, I'm moving on to Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chair. The executive summary of the PwC report is a damning indictment of the social work management. As members, we're clear that the criticism doesn't extend to staff delivering the services. Do you consider that you and your management team are capable of turning things around?
John?
I'm very confident that I and the management team are capable of turning things around. We've set out in the work plan attached as Appendix 2 broad range of activity which addresses the points that were highlighted for improvement in the external audit report. We're already making progress against those areas for improvement. We've identified short, medium and long-term areas for action to be taken, and we're driving that through as a management team through the Risk Enablement Management Group. We have also recently added a specific lead role to one of the heads of service within the service to drive forward some of the specific issues to do with financial recovery. So I think overall the piece, I think we have the capacity and the capability to turn things around and to make things better. I might just say, Chair, if I may, just in concluding, in terms of the financial recovery aspect, in 3 of the 4 completed financial years of my tenure as director, the service has actually outturned either on or under budget. This is the first time we've had a substantial budget overrun in that period. I don't want to stray into the discussion, Chair, in terms of item 6, but I thought that point was worth noting, and I think it's something that we can maybe come back to when we're discussing.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Brodie and then Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. I've got 2 questions. Councillor McKee mentions that the report arrived days late on Saturday, but it's actually 3 months late because this report's been available since November. And I think that it's ridiculous to get this weighty document a few days before the committee meeting when they've had all that time to be to have this information. So why have we not had this information before? It's very important it's a document which really requires a great deal of study, not just a couple of days. So why is this report taking so long to reach members? It's an important part of the working of this committee. I would want to know why that report's not been available. Second question is, right, we're focusing on the social work department, but I think this goes wider than the social work department. What's the question for the finance department and the corporate working of the committee? What support has been put in place to support the social work department through this? This report shows things which have been endemic in their organisation for probably a decade or more. It is highlighted in the SWEAR report. What support is in there to support the director to make this culture change?
I'll get Mr Haslett to answer the first question, Councillor Brodie, and then move on from there. Yep.
As with all audit reports, there's a process to be going through. I'm sorry, I'll defer to the member. He's got his hands up, sir.
I would like to hear from the chair first, because it's obviously a political decision not to give members this report. So I'd like to hear a political. The council's in charge of this council. I would like a reply from you as chair.
With respect, Mr Brodie, it was not a political decision. This was a report commissioned by the Chief Executive, right, on behalf of the head of paid service. It came back forward through, and that's the reason it came to us now. This is the first committee that was available since the action plan on the back of that was put together. This is the first opportunity we had to actually put it in front of members.
Chair, I'd like to, obviously it's been available since November. Why haven't you pushed for the members to have a copy of this report? It's the councillors who run this authority, not the officials. Why haven't you given this information?
Exactly for the reason, because it's an external audit, an external report put together for the Chief Executive, not for the members at that stage. The first time I got it is exactly the same day as you got it, and that was the first time that I set eyes on the PwC report. That was quite rightly done. It would have been absolutely pointless then having it out in the public debate without having a proper set time allowed for officers to take forward a form of action plan to at least discuss today, or else we'd have been having to adjourn this item to another meeting, yet again, to discuss any action plan. And I think the way we took it forward is the right way. And at the end of the day, this is a far-reaching report. It's not something we can do quickly. I appreciate the amount of time we've had to go into the fine detail, but we have had since last weekend to go into it. And believe me, I've read every single word of it. And I would assume and I hope that every other member in the committee has done exactly the same. So it was not a political decision to delay this. It was a decision taken so that we actually had a proper footing for this debate, right? And that is why it's come to this, the first available committee. I'll let Mr. Haswell come in on the...
I think, Chairman, you've covered the issues. The report, there are processes to go through after you've commissioned a report from the external auditor. Members will see that there was a draft report which was consulted on at officer level. The final report came in November. There was an action plan being prepared. As you say, Chairman, to have produced the report would have raised more questions than answers, and the intention was to provide members with the report and the response, which is the action plan. And that took some time to prepare by Mr. Alexander and his management team, and this is the first meeting that we were able to bring the paper to members. I would say that I accept the point that members didn't receive the papers until Saturday. We are endeavouring to ensure that papers go out 7 days before meetings in accordance with the members' requirements. There were issues in relation to the preparation of these papers which resulted in them not being ready until Friday.
Thank you. The second part of your question, Dick, what was it again?
What support has been put in by the Finance Department and the Corporate Centre to support the social work through this event?
John, can you take that?
Thank you, Chair. There's very significant and substantial support provided to the service by corporate finance at the centre. We have a dedicated finance officer allocated to the social work service who works full-time on social work budget issues. In addition to that, the devolved services finance manager commits a substantial proportion of his time to supporting us in recognition of some of the significant challenges facing social work with a finite budget and a rising level of need in communities across Dumfries and Galloway. I think that the support that I get from corporate finance is of a very high standard. I would not make any criticism of the support that's provided by corporate colleagues. I think that the challenge for both our corporate finance colleagues and for those of us who manage within the social work service is to ensure that the management information that's available to us is of the right type and the right quality to allow both our finance colleagues and ourselves as professional managers to make the right decisions in terms of how best to allocate and control the significant resources which the Council makes available to us.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, then Councillor Wood, then the leader.
Thanks, Chair. As I say, I think it's a complete gross dereliction of duty for committees not to properly discuss the budget for the year ahead, make informed decisions. But because we had no saving options were proposed for the social work during the budget process, there was absolutely no discussion on social work budget at the full council. And the social work committee meeting during the budget setting process, it was cancelled. This makes me wonder now, if this report was available three months ago, whether that meeting could not have been used to discuss this report. It's totally unacceptable that given the overspend, the budget is continuing to rise, and this has clear implications on next year's budget. When we come to recommendations, I'll be putting forward the amendment.
That's noted, John. Thank you. I've got Councillor Wood, then the leader, and then Councillor Maitland.
Thank you, Chair. First, can I ask the retraction of the accusation from Councillor Brodie with regard to political meanderings that may have been going on, is what he's suggesting. So I would very much appreciate if you could do that.
Councillor Brodie.
Didn't make any political allegations. I asked a question: why did it take so long for this to come ahead? It was other people that said political things. What I said was, I asked a question, it's been answered, and I've got my own opinions on it. I think there should have been more councillor input into making sure that this, whether it's not for any political party, but councillor input, because it's, at the end of the day, it's the chair who's accountable to the people here, and that is, I don't think MD can disagree with that.
Right, we'll move on from that. The leader, then Councillor Maitland, Councillor Dick, and Councillor Martin again, wanting back in.
I've got a question for Mr. Bravey, and then I would like to come back in. At the top of page 4 of your report, it's 14 of 190 in the papers we have today. Your second point says, however, their combined impact on our observation of management interactions leads to further questions over the resilience of the social work services team. Could you expand exactly what you are meaning by our observations of the management interactions, please?
It ties back to the point I was making that there was a need for more effective team working and engagement at a senior manager level around that. And in our experience from elsewhere, both in the public and private sector, to be resilient when things happen in any organisation, you need to be able to operate quickly and effectively as a team to actually address things. And we could see that was less than optimal within the social work department.
Leader, you want back in?
In line with that, I noticed with the action plan, there's part of it is to have one-to-one meetings between the director and the rest of the social work services management team. What's been the feedback to the director from his management team with regard to those one-to-one meetings, and are they happy with the progress that's going forward in the action plan?
Well, maybe just to clarify one point, before I directly respond to the leader's question, Chair, the one-to-one arrangements are a long-standing arrangement that have been in place. What we've done more recently is that we have, if you like, upgraded the element of those one-to-ones which focuses on performance management. And that's, I think, referenced in the external audit report, which members have before them. The one-to-one sessions do allow for engagement around some of the key challenges facing the service. And I think it's fair to say that my senior management colleagues are well cited on the need for improvement in some of the areas that have been highlighted by the external audit report, and are focusing very much on delivering that improvement in conjunction with myself as director. So the feedback, if you like, has been constructive. They, like me, are viewing the improvements that have been identified by the external audit as an opportunity for us to make significant improvements in those bits of our processes which need to be improved. And they're working willingly with me to deliver on that.
Thank you. Councillor Maitland?
Thank you. Rather following on from the same page that the leader was on, which is page 4 of the report. My question, Chairman, to the writers of the report is about behaviours. I'm interested in the alignment of social work service behaviours with the stated intent of the Council. I wonder if you please expand on what you mean there. I'm not entirely clear about what you meant.
Cameron?
In our observations and in some of the outcomes that we could see, we didn't feel there was full alignment to what the Council was trying to achieve. You as members have already touched on the situation concerning budgets and operating to budgets and changing the ways that we do things and understanding what happens. And I guess from my point of view, social work is not the only needs-led service that you have. There's a number of these services that would be in that situation and having to operate within what the Council is trying to achieve. So that would be simply an example of that.
Thanks, Cameron. Is that happy with that? I've got Councillor Dick, then I've got Councillor Scobie as a third-time speaker, and then back to Councillor Martin as a second-time speaker. Yep.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to commend PricewaterhouseCoopers for what is an excellent report. It's in plain English and holds nothing back And I think it's also a clear indication of political direction that the administration has actually taken this action. Recognising as well that Audit and Risk and Social Work Services Committee in the previous administration had both backed it. I'm not going to go into the detail of the executive summary. I think it speaks for itself, but the one thing that sticks out most is the budget and monitoring statement, which says that locality senior social work services managers do not take an active lead in budget monitoring. As a result, I would like to propose a motion, and I'll give you a copy, Chair, because it's contains a number of points, that this committee notes with significant concern the findings of the external auditor's review of financial and business management arrangements in social work services. Secondly, it notes the action agreed by the Director and his management team in response to these findings. And thirdly, considers that the lack of progress and slippage in actions agreed to be totally unacceptable. And fourthly, agrees to remit to the Chief Executive to establish a scrutiny group consisting of senior officers independent of social work services to review progress on the action plan on a monthly basis and to report to the committee. And finally, agrees to remit to the Chief Executive to bring forward early proposals for a sustainable senior management structure for senior social work services, which will deliver future integration with health, welfare reform and fit-for-purpose business management. Thanks, Chair.
Just a second. I've still got a couple of first-time speakers, and I'll move on to that motion just in 2 seconds. The first-time speaker was Mr. Scobie, and then the next two in line were both second-time speakers. I'll let Mr. Scobie speak. Is there copies of that, or can we get copies of that, or can we get circulated? And then I would suggest we would have a small recess, 10-15 minutes, to let everyone in the chamber study them. But let's have the first-time speakers first. Yeah. Councillor Scobie.
Chair, my point is to you to begin with, because I have a number of questions, and the first one would be, and then I would hope to come back, is whether we've got an adversarial structure here today, because there are a number of questions that I need to ask in terms of the report, particularly the summary report of the external auditor. So could you advise? I know that scrutiny has got an adversarial structure, but has this one got? Because I think it's appalling we should be coming in with a motion at this early stage of the debate.
That's why I'm keeping the motion in abeyance and letting the first-time speakers come through. So have you got a question for either Mr. Ravey or for the Director?
I have a number of questions, Chair, if you allow me to take them one at a time, or yes, I can go through them all at once, but you know, I'm not wanting to ask one question and then only have to come back. I have a number of questions. I seek your guidance as to how you're conducting this meeting.
Free and frank, and everyone will get an opportunity.
So I can ask my question one at a time, and then
one at a time, and then I'll go. If there's any other first-time speakers, I've got a couple of second-time speakers.
Chair, the question I ask if it's an adversarial structure, you know, it may be that I have other questions once I hear the answers, and I don't just want to be cut off on one question and then, you know, not have a follow-through. Could I seek your guidance on that, Chair?
Absolutely, and as you know, standing orders allow you to come back with one supplementary question. Or others at the Chair's discretion.
Chair, I'm not sure if the standing orders, perhaps we'll get a clarification on that. It does not allow you, that's at full council to ask questions. What I'm asking here is that, you know, I'll be allowed to develop my points, and that's a question I'm asking. Because you seem to say that it's one question, then a supplementary. That is not what standing order says, in my understanding.
Right, what I said to you, free and frank, everyone will get an opportunity to speak. Right? You'll get the chance to put... Okay, ask your question, please.
Yep, Chair, it's in relation, it's just been raised, under the budget setting. There is there is no obvious link between the budget and the activity levels of social work services to be provided on or anticipated demand. And it touches on the point as made by Councillor Martin in terms of we have not debated, you know, what the demand is, and this was, you know, the reason we went for external audit was to see, you know, had to do with the environment of monies from one service to the other without setting a proper budget and keeping to that. Is the external auditor any more confident in terms of the setting of the budget, whether we have got this right?
The work in the report that you have before you, it relates solely to the social work department, and that's what we refer to. We have not followed that up. Contained within the action plan, which is a very ambitious action plan, it does talk about trying to improve the information along the lines that you described, Councillor, which is actually aligning costs more clearly with the things that social work actually do, you know, the care packages, whatever, and wider than that. So I can't comment whether the action has already been taken, but there certainly seems to be action planned within the plan to actually make that happen. But at the time of our review, no, that wasn't the case. The management information that would allow some of these decisions to be made was not available.
Thank you. You come back now, Willie, on that specific issue, Willie, yeah? No, come back later on. You have another chance to come back in. On that issue, are you following it up?
Chair, yeah, because what the director said that the support he received was to a high standard. And again, to ask the external auditor, because on the next paragraph, under the second bullet, there is, at best, ad hoc engagement between budget holders and corporate finance. So I'm questioning, whether external auditor believe that the support is to a high standard. If indeed this statement is correct, there is, at best, ad hoc engagement between budget holders and corporate finance. I am unclear as to what that actually means, given a statement made by the director earlier that the support was to a high standard.
Happy to take that. The comment within the report relates to a point in time when we carried out a review where we felt there could be improvements to that support and working together. The director, I think, Director Grant himself, was talking about the now position rather than the position that we actually reviewed, which was during summer last year.
Just a second, Willie, just a second. That was my understanding of the director's answer. He answered what the current situation was as opposed to the situation that was in place when Mr. Revenue's team did their audit. But we stand to be corrected in that. That was my understanding.
Yeah, but Chair, I'm reading a report that I assume was current. Is this now an historical document?
Every report's a historical document.
The words of wisdom the chair's used are good and wise words of wisdom, absolutely. The moment one puts pen to paper and it's passed to someone, it's a historic document, Councillor. Yes, it's a point in time. I emphasise that I am not commenting on whether that action plan that is in place has actually been implemented or what the current now position is, because I can't possibly do that without actually revisiting it.
Can I get Councillor Martin in first and then come straight back to you, Willie, okay?
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to ask you, have you got confidence in the summary of findings? A lot of the business, the sections in here, when it comes to the summary of findings and then the risks there, as I say, I would have no confidence that these targets could be met, etc. Because, as I say, nearly every one of them, it makes you wonder. So I've just wondered if you've got confidence that this budget can be brought under control.
My understanding at this moment in time is what I understand, what I think aren't under scrutiny here. It's a report from PwC, and my own private views on it will come if we have an amendment or a vote or whatever later. But your point's well made, and I understand where you're coming from, but it's not the right time. Councillor Wood and then Councillor Scobie to come back in.
Thank you, Chair. It's to ask PwC within page 25, where you're talking about, in the summary of finding, it is unreasonable to expect that over 50 budget holders can be effectively supported with a corporate finance team of 3. What would you suggest would be a sort of ratio you'd be looking for?
Mr. Reeve?
I think this is based on the evidence and the time over the summer, where we could see that time that the individual corporate finance person was able to spend with an individual responding to questions wasn't formalised, which refers back to the comment earlier about ad hoc engagement. So I wouldn't be proposing a set ratio, because obviously the social work service varies in terms of demands and pressure, but actually recognising demands and pressures, and there may be some areas at point in time that does need additional support, and it's recognising that. So it's not about a set ratio, but it's about looking at the overall balance of work and the support that
Okay, thank you. I've got two speakers left at this moment in time. I've got Councillor Mail, who's a first-time speaker, and then Councillor Scobie, who'll get back in immediately after Councillor Mail. Okay?
Yeah, Chair, it was simply on the action plan. I mean, there's been a bit of a mention of it, so I presume the Director can give us reassurance that it is making significant progress.
John?
I'm happy to give that assurance, Chair. As I say, we have identified within the action plan short, medium and longer term areas for activity, and we are progressing with those with urgency as a management team, and monitoring that on a very regular basis.
Chair, can I then ask for the actions that were planned for the end of January, have those all been carried out?
To the areas within the report which have been highlighted for early attention are all either completed or are in process to be completed.
I'm not sure if is that yes or a no, John? Sorry, have they been completed or not?
I think it's a simple yes in relation to some of those actions, but in the case of others, in trying to put those actions into effect, we've discovered that there are other things that we need to do alongside it, which means that we can't finally put that, as it were, into conclusion by that particular date. But they're either completed or in process to be completed.
Thank you. Councillor Scobie, went back in.
Thank you, Chair. And I think we were given and supported your words of wisdom in terms of being a historic document. And I think that the auditor did refer to it, that it was a period between June and August of 2012. And on that, taking myself back to August of 2012, in your summary, the way forward, in the first bullet point that refers to process and control improvements, the Council should take steps to implement process controls, management information and reporting to address the weaknesses identified in this report. And I go on to talk about, the report talks about culture. The Council must clearly set out a vision for social work services that is clearly understood and brought into by officers. And again, on the next bullet point, a new way forward to deliver the Council's medium and long-term goals for social work service delivery, there must be a clear blueprint in place that sets out specific objectives. And that was in August 2012. Still on the same document in 2012, August 2012, there is on the same page of 14 of 90, behaviours will always overcome business systems and processes, and therefore, in responding to findings of this report, you may wish to consider, and it's the first, second, third, fourth bullet point, the extent to which there is a comprehensive and effective plan in place to engage social work service teams on risk practices and expect ways of working. Now, I have taken from the auditor that was 2012. He does not know what has happened up to date in terms of that period from August to now as to whether these practices and plans are now in place in that respect. So it's again to ask, you know, the auditor in the first question whether he feels that he has the confidence or he had the confidence when he wrote the report and the document with the reference that I've referred to, whether there was enough confidence that the department could make improvements to improve the practices and the ways of working in here. And also, my second question, given that this was a follow-on from the damning report we received in 2006 in terms of leadership, both official and political levels, whether he at that time felt there was confidence in the external auditor to move this forward in that respect. And my question of the director is, given that we are to consider whether indeed the plans are robust enough to address the issues as were raised by the Social Work Committee in terms of aligning budgets to what they actually said, and whether we are now on that plan rather than the environments that did take place up to the period when we asked for the external audit.
Cameron?
What we're talking about here is a significant and challenging change programme. That's what we're talking about here. And if one was to look in generic terms and then flow it into what we're talking about here, in generic terms, if you look across the globe, in terms of what makes big change programmes work, what makes them not work, there are some features that you look for, and I think you've touched on some of them. One of them is there a clearly defined scope. You really know what you're trying to do. And what you have, in my view, before you just now is a very detailed action plan, which in many ways goes towards that very detailed scope, giving clarity of the actions that need to be taken. So you perhaps could tick that box in terms of that, and you don't need to actually then go and look for evidence in front of you for some of that. But what also needs to go with that is that there needs to be top team sponsorship, there needs to be stakeholder buy-in, there needs to be very clear project management processes to drive the thing and make it happen, and quality assurance processes alongside that. And finally, there needs to be an assurance that at all times it focuses on the benefits that we're going to get from a social work and a council perspective of what we're trying to achieve. These would be the things that you would look for in any large change programme. I can't comment, unfortunately, on these ones because I haven't looked at that. I haven't done that. I don't know. I did not carry out a capability assessment when we carried out this work. That is perhaps what the councillor's asking about. I didn't carry out a capability assessment, so it would be inappropriate for me to comment on that. It's not evidence-based, because everything that we're referring to in this report is evidence-based. We do have a detailed action plan that has been submitted by your department here, which is evidence of an ambitious plan and a detailed plan. It is not a one-page plan. It runs over many, many pages, and it's got a lot of detailed actions within that. So I can't comment any more than that, other than to say it's a very ambitious plan with very ambitious timescales. In terms of the final point, the 2006, again, I can only apologise. I wasn't involved then, wasn't your auditor, wasn't involved at that time, so I'm not cited in that.
Thank you. Just a second, Will, if you do, can I just ask everybody in the room to actually turn off their mobile phones, because I believe it does interfere with the recording system. Just make sure everyone in the room has actually got their phones off. Thank you. Willie, do you want to come back on that? Yeah.
No, I did ask of the director. We are grateful and appreciate the frank answer that we got, because we've got a very ambitious action plan against a very ambitious timescale, in that respect. So to ask the director, I did ask if the auditor had the confidence that it could be done, and there's nothing evidence. This was everything in the report was evidence based up to 2012 August, and it's that period that preceded 2012. Whether the confidence, I note that he's not in the position to comment on that one, but the director is, in terms of the very ambitious plan and the very ambitious time scale. Whether he has the confidence, because I have said it on more than one occasion, I am less than confident that the department and indeed the leadership at official and at political levels would have in taking this forward. I don't have the confidence, so it's to ask the director that question if he has the confidence.
Director.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, as I've said in response to questions from other members during this debate, from a professional perspective, I have every confidence that we will deliver on the improvements which are identified by the external auditors. And the detailed work plan which is attached to the report sets out the areas that we are seeking to address, both in the short and the medium to long term. So I am confident that we can turn around those areas of challenge. As Mr. Reevy has said, it's a very significant challenge that we're facing, but I'm confident that with the support of the corporate centre within the council and working with elected members, we can make the improvements that we need to make.
Thank you. I've got the leader, then Councillor McKee, and I'm then trying to find out if there's anyone else with any other direct questions, and we'll move on to the next part of the business. Okay. So your leader first, then Councillor McKee.
It's with regard to, Mr. Reevy said that we have a complex and large number of improvement actions, etc., and you have the confidence that you'll be able to take those forward. Along with the fact that we also have running in tandem the social care integration, do you think you have the capacity within your management team to deliver both of these? Because, you know, I think you need to focus on one without letting the other one go, and you need to make sure both are taken forward, because we're looking in fairly quick timescale for the social care integration. And I would like you to sort of reassure me that the capacity is there for both of these to be run in tandem, and if they aren't, do we need as a committee to be looking elsewhere to actually beef up some of the recommendations to actually deliver this?
Director.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, my own view, I think, is that the two are not separate things. I mean, I think that getting the improvements in terms of our financial and business processes right is essential to us delivering on the big change agenda that you mentioned in terms of health and social care integration. I think the one supports the other. We have committed priority resources within the social work service. We will draw on support from the corporate centre of the council in addition to that to help us to deliver the improvements that we seek to make. And we have also sought some external expert advice to help us, some external support to help us to prioritise and move forward as quickly as we can on the main areas for improvement that have been identified by the external.
Thank you. Councillor McKee.
Thanks, Chair. Can we expect reports at every meeting on this work plan? And the issue I want to raise again is Framework I. Framework I seems to work the same way as this council used to work 10, 15 years ago, where one department didn't talk to the other. And we seem to have the same problem with Framework I. Can he bring us up to date on where we are with this, and do we ever expect it to talk to other computer systems in the council? And there's also the issue of training that you kind of wonder sometimes if we've been thorough enough with our training on these computer systems. We were saying that you're on about how does it work, system conditions, why does a system behave in certain ways? What sort of training's been given, and is there ongoing training for staff with this system? And what's being done with regards to matching it up with the computer system like you're talking about in finance? There doesn't seem to be any back and forth talking at all. And if you could answer them, it would be very helpful, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Director?
Chair, so far as the use of Framework I is concerned, I mean, I think our first priority is to ensure that the capacity which Framework I has to tell us about levels of activity and about the financial consequences of that activity is fully utilised. At the present time, most of the functionality of Framework I, which is in day-to-day use, relates to case management issues. So we need to kind of rebalance the use that we make of Framework I. That's the first thing. The second thing after that, I think, would be, as you say, to make sure that there is an interface with the other relevant finance system within the council. Make sure that there is a clear link between what we're doing in the way of committing social work finances and how that plays out in terms of paying of invoices and how that impacts on the overall performance of the budget. So that's very important. Framework I has been in place and being rolled out really since 2007. So as part of that process, there is an induction training process for all staff who come into the service, and refresher training, excuse me, is available for staff who are moving into new roles, who may be using Framework I differently. Clearly, as we shift the emphasis from case management more to activity and financial monitoring within Framework I, that will have a training impact for us. And as part of the work that we're doing and is set out under themes 4 and 5 in the work plan, that refocusing of the support that staff need to make good use of the system will take place.
Thank you. Councillor Brodie.
Reports here. Can we look for reports to every committee on the progress of this work plan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was on Framework I as well, so just like our external auditor's comments on Framework I, it was sold as at the time as the cure-to-all financial monitoring ills. So is it all our Christmases come good, or is it just a plain turkey Framework I?
Well, that's the expert.
I can comment on, fully comment on it, but I can maybe give a bit more background in terms of what we were looking at. I do understand, as the Director said, that it is used for case management. Case management wasn't specifically part of the work that we were around business processes, financial issues. We were very much focused on that, and that's where we have identified the weaknesses around the lack of reconciliation, work I, and the financial and linking it back to the other point of the report about budget saving and monitoring, linking those two pieces is critical in terms of getting right into that forward. So I can't really comment around some of the things that is with and work, but there are areas where further work is to link budget.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Maitland, then Councillor Syme.
Thank you. It's about the budget monitoring. While I understand what you're talking about with respect to detailed ongoing changes in base budgets when it comes to numbers, I was a little surprised to see that you suggest that we really have no activity-based budgeting information. Because we are supplied with a budgeting book by finance, corporate finance. And I mean, what I'm taking from this is that you're suggesting, and tell me whether I'm right or wrong, that I can't really rely on that information at all. Is that correct?
Sorry, Chair, a question directed to me. I mean, I think that the activity-based budgeting information is based on reliable information that's put together as part of that process. We have been generating that information out with Framework I because the modules within Framework I which we've been utilising are more to do with case management than activity or finance monitoring. So the activity-based budgeting information is reliable, but it is not generated through the information contained within Framework I for the reasons that Ms Kerr has set out earlier.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Syme, then the leader.
Thanks, Chair. Just for a wee bit clarity, Chair, John mentioned a wee while ago about external supports. Could we have a wee bit clarity on that? Is there cost implications there?
John?
We have engaged the services of an external expert through the good offices of Solace Enterprises. There is a contract in place to fund that arrangement, and that's being met through the Council's central corporate budget.
Thank you. Leader, and then Councillor Scobie.
It's the action plan 1.19 on page 47 of 190. Include clear financial information and other resource impact, then reports requiring policy decisions. There's a special meeting on the 27th of the 11th, development and implementation of control measures. Now, I'm sort of jumping maybe a wee bit ahead, but within the item 6 report, the control measures are reported as previously reported, have installed a range of control measures to ensure that the social work budget was brought into line. While some of these have been successful, there have been additional cost pressures, etc. There's no other reference to which ones have actually been put in place and have actually been addressed, and which ones haven't been put in place. It's very sort of quiet on that. I would have expected more in line with that in improvement action in the paper today.
John?
Very much take on board the comment the leaders made, and perhaps out with the meeting I can provide the more detailed information that is referred to.
Councillor Scobie?
Yeah, Chair, the leader either asked the questions on capacity, and I think that's contained in page 51 of 190. Two, it's a short-term leadership, accountability and capacity activity to ensure there is clear and visible leadership within social work support, supported by a fit-for-purpose structure. And I think, I only read in last night's local paper, the MP saying that, he believes that the department is not fit for purpose, and it's so we've not got that confidence, then we are in serious and difficult times, because it goes on to say, build capacity and enhance skills to support the delivery of department business plan, and this programme ensure that right specialist expertise is deployed to support frontline delivery and lead social work service. And I look at the financial recovery on page 38, is it 38 of 190, where it talks about we are taking action on overspending in the current financial year to strengthen activity and budgetary controls to ensure the delivery of in-year cost reduction, recovery and so forth, avoidance of future overspends, and again, that's environment and everything else. I'm still not feeling the confidence coming through that we have done all this, and the leader talks about, as it running in tandem to this, is the integration service that's going to come about through the integration with health. So we are looking at immediate, short-term, medium, and then long-term. And the business plan is fine words, but what I've got to hear is, have we got the capability, the capacity, and all this, and still reporting to this committee that we have everything under control? And I'm not hearing it. Chair, could we hear again that all these are going to, against this fine-worded business plan?
Yeah, the question was to what, John?
I mean, I think that the proof will be in the delivery of the outcomes that are planned, and that's what we're working on at the present time. And as we provide more detailed reports as time goes on, then I hope that members will see the concrete developments and the concrete improvements that are being made.
Will you want to come back in?
Yeah, please, because, notwithstanding, we've already heard this as an historical document from your own words, Chair, and that was the August 2012. What improvements have been put in place since August 2012 would build us with the confidence that this plan has been working, is working, and there's further developments? Can you give us some examples of the plan in action and some of the improvements that have been made since August 2012 that would lead us to say we have the confidence?
Director?
Well, I think I would take the timescale as being from November 2012, when the report was finalised, rather than from the time that the fieldwork was being undertaken, if I may, Chair. I think in the action plan, as it is set out for members, the column which relates to progress, which is the second last column on the right of the page, is seeking to give some high-level information about the work that we've achieved, the things that we've done, and the things that we're still planning to do in relation to the priority actions on the left-hand side, as divided into immediate, short-term, medium, and long-term. I mean, I think that's the statement of progress that we've made, and those are the actions that we've achieved and delivered, and we'll be continuing to do that through the work of the Risk Enablement and Management Group and any other mechanisms which we put in place jointly with our corporate colleagues to ensure that there's a close focus on achieving concrete improvements against the areas identified by the external.
We would like, a few examples so that we can, somewhat immediate and financial recovery. If we could get some example, or maybe, we're just being directed to progress being made. Could the director give us some examples?
I think it's fair comment, Willie. Have you got anything you can give us, John, here?
In terms of specifics, if I could take, for example, financial recovery as one area, we've identified some areas where we need to deliver limitations on spend between now and the end of the financial year, which can be done without leaving people at risk who need services. And so we are doing that at the moment under the specific leadership of the head of service that I've designated to take that action forward. That focuses on making sure that all areas of discretionary spend are kept to the minimum necessary to support individuals who are at risk. We're also looking at the review of high-cost care packages. That's a process which is ongoing at the present time to reduce costs and help us to retain financial recovery. We're also going to be in discussion with our partner agencies as to how we work together to help the financial recovery process going forward. So those are just kind of 3 examples of things that we're doing at the present time.
Thank you. Councillor Dick, you had a motion earlier. We got a seconder.
Yeah, I'd be happy to second them, because I have serious concerns about the capacity just on the ground just now to actually deliver both this improvement plan plus looking at integration. And I would like to make sure that we actually do have the right resource in place to take forward both of these.
Right. So have you seconded the motion? Is that what you're saying? Right. I'm going to propose you would take a 10 or 15 minutes. John, you want in?
Just as I said earlier, I'd like added it in the recommendations. I don't know if we pass 2-3, it might take it in that a report be brought as a matter of urgency to full council on the implications of this review for the wider budget setting process of the council, in particular the current procedures for setting individual department budgets.
I think in actual fact, if we've got a motion in with a second, that's an amendment or an addition to the motion. What are you wanting to amend the motion that was put forward, or are you wanting? Because my understanding is if there's a motion and a decision taken, that supersedes the recommendations. It's the motion that takes precedence. Am I right, Mr. Hazel?
Like added as a recommendation before.
Are you want to add that to the motion, or you want to add that as an amendment to the motion?
Add it.
What's wrong with taking it as
an
addition
the motion
to the recommendations in the paper?
I've not seen the motion yet.
Well, that's exactly the point I'm making, John and Jock.
I'll see when I come back.
Yes, absolutely. So when we come back, if we take maybe a 15-minute recess, yeah? You want 10? Well, I mean, I'm quite happy to give you 15, but if you're happy with 10, we'll take 10.
Chair, if there's 2 parts to this, if Councillor Martin has something that we should be considering, I think we should take slightly longer to make sure that there's copies, because I've seen it in the past, we've rushed and rushed and rushed, and we end up coming back in to go back out.
Councillor John, have you got copies, or can you get them done quickly so that we can actually, and round all the members? Okay, so, well, it's what, 20? Let's come back at midday, okay? That's nice and neat, okay? If you're back at midday, welcome everyone back. Sorry it took a wee bit longer than we thought, but I think it's worth that extra time. I think there's been some changes, Councillor Dick.
Thanks, Chair. The amendment from Councillor Martin, could I ask if he's quite happy to accept that as part of our motion? And the second thing I would put to Councillor Maitland is that I would be happy to accept that in place of our current bullet point 3.
John and Jane, are you happy with that? To include it in the one motion?
I'm quite happy to accept mine, but I don't know what Councillor Maitland.
Oh, right. Is it in writing, Jane? Yes.
I have it. I have a form of words here, which I would actually like to speak to, if I might, just briefly.
Right. Give me 2 seconds.
Chair, a point of order. What are we discussing? Is it bullet point 3? As a change to that?
Mr. Hazel,
clarification on that?
Chairman, has Councillor Maitland produced a bullet point that she wishes incorporated into your decision? Do the members have it? No. Chairman, you might consider asking Councillor Maitland to tell members what she's proposing, and then perhaps if she's got it in writing, make sure all members have got it before you start debating an issue.
Okay. How long would it take, Jane, to get a copy, photocopy? What, a few minutes?
Well, absolutely.
Or do you want to speak to it first?
I have a copy here, and as I was suggesting, I was actually going simply to speak briefly to it. I was going to talk about your motion and ask if you would consider adding or replacing bullet point 3 with a form of words which I have.
In that case, we can move forward, I think. Thanks very much, Jane. So it's not a substantive change, it's a wording change, is basically
It's a
what you're
wording change. Chairman.
Councillor Maitland,
Chairman, I wish to simply read out a change to bullet point 3, which is that given that many of the issues highlighted have previously been reported to this committee, I consider that the lack of proactive action by the service to address these before November is totally unacceptable. I'm afraid to say that that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's what the bullet change will be. I have to say that I have listened to the debate up till now, and I want to be quite clear that I'm not going to involve myself in any sort of party political shenanigans, anything like that. I have been upset by what's been going on in the past, ever since the 2006 report. I've been shocked about the fact that our Framework I was not being used properly. That's an expensive tool which should have been put into action and been used properly. I've been dismayed that the Council's management did not appear to have the capacity to insist that a most expensive tool was not being used properly. As far as I'm concerned, culturally, social work has always viewed itself as a profession apart. It is the most important profession. It's absolutely vital to what we do. It is an important job. It's one of many within the Council. But social work has to be managed fully, effectively and competently. And I would just like to say that, in my view, if we were to leave things as they are, I think it would be a triumph of hope over experience. And I would therefore like to suggest to members that they change that bullet point 3 for what I have just read out.
Okay, Councillor McKee.
Could Councillor Maitland read it out again, please? I'm not quite sure just exactly what she meant.
Bullet point 3. Given that many of the issues highlighted have previously been reported to this committee, we consider the lack of proactive action by the service to address these before November is totally unacceptable.
Thank you. Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, and I've looked at the motion as proposed before we adjourned. I've listened to what Councillor Maitland has said in terms of her bullet point 3, and I've also looked at the amendment that seems to have got some accord or acceptance as moved by the Labour group. I don't think there is political shenanigans going on. I think what this committee has seriously got to look at in terms of what is the common thread running throughout some of the remarks. And, you know, I do believe I have made the remark that I have no confidence. I do want to place on record that I think we've got hard-working staff out there who are doing their utmost and best to deliver the services to the people who are most vulnerable and require the services, the demand-driven service that's referred to in the report. However, I have serious concerns about fit for purpose and the confidence. So, you know, throughout this, I think there is an issue for this committee to face up to, and would ask that this committee move that this committee has indeed lost confidence in the Social Work Department and instruct the Chief Executive to take immediate action to resolve the situation.
I'll take governance advice on that if that's competent, actually.
Can I remind members that you're in an open meeting, you have got a code of conduct. The chief executive is the head of paid service. It's the chief executive's responsibility to deal with staffing issues. Can I suggest to members that that proposal is inappropriate for this committee? It's not within the remit of this committee to deal with. This committee is the Social Work Services Committee. You're looking at management and financial, business management and financial issues today, and that is what you should continue to look at.
Thanks. In that case, we have a motion, we have a seconder, we have some amendments which have been agreed mutually. I would like consensus if we can, because I think we need to show as a whole committee that we are committed to this whole process and to drive this forward. So, Mr. Haswell, can you just recap for the committee exactly what the motion with the relative amendments are?
I am assuming, Chairman, that Councillor Dick and the leader are accepting the proposal put forward by Councillor Martin and also the proposal put forward by Councillor Maitland. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, happy to accept.
Thank you. You therefore have not a motion, you have a decision of this committee. And do members want me to read it out, or are members happy that they understand what you have? You were given a piece of paper, I think, by Councillor Dick, which had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullet points on it. You were then given a piece of paper by Councillor Martin. Councillor Martin's piece of paper, the finding on Councillor Martin's issue becomes part of the motion. Councillor Maitland, have you got what you have written down, please, so that I don't say something or repeat something that I shouldn't? Can you give it? Have you got enough copies for the members? Chairman, can we get some copies? The Labour Group do not have copies, nor does Councillor Scobie, and I think some of your members don't have copies. Could we get photocopies? Would you give us a few minutes just to get photocopies? You can go on to the next item of business if you wish, and I can then come back to this item. You have a consensus in the committee.
I think in actual fact we'll just wait for the copies coming back, and I think, Alec, it would be actually very helpful and very clear for everyone if we actually read out exactly what it is, rather than assume that there's an understanding amongst the committee members. Jock, you wanting in?
I want to respect, Chair. I've got a meeting later on this afternoon, and I'd prefer, and I hope the rest of the committee would agree with, to move on to the next item of business and come back to this after the next item of business is completed.
I think we're only talking about 2 minutes, Jock. We're not talking about hours, okay?
But say a adjourn for lunch, Chair. Say a adjourn for lunch.
Yeah, okay, if members are happy, we can adjourn for lunch, because we've got consensus in case of making sure everyone's fully informed of what the decision is. Yep. We'll be back here. It's 12:20 now. We come back here, what, 1 o'clock? Is that enough time? 1:45? 1:45? Okay, that'll do. Thank you. time on the business. Mr. Haswell, can we actually get a formal decision for that item 4? Then we'll move on. Yep.
Thank you, Chairman. The decision of the committee is that this
Sorry, Chair. I'd just like to comment on Councillor Maitland's amendment to, if you don't mind. I'm not going to speak against it or anything, or ask for it withdrawn or anything like that. I'd just like a quick comment, if you don't mind.
No, thanks, John. We've got consensus, so unless it's against it, I appreciate where you're coming from. Okay, we have consensus at this moment in time. Unless you want to change that, we're just getting the decision clarified. That's where we are just now. Yep.
Thank you, Chairman. This committee notes with significant concern the findings in the external auditor's review of financial and business management arrangements in social work services. Notes the action agreed by the Director and his management team in response to these findings. Given that many of the issues highlighted have previously been reported to this committee, considers the lack of proactive action by the service to address these before November is totally unacceptable, agrees to remit to the Chief Executive to establish a scrutiny group consisting of senior officers independent of social work services to review progress on the action plan on a monthly basis and to report to committee, agrees to remit to the Chief Executive to bring forward early proposals for a sustainable senior management structure for social work services which will deliver future integration with health, welfare reform and fit-for-purpose business management, and further agrees that a report be brought as a matter of urgency to full Council on the implications of this review for the wider budget setting process of the Council, in particular the current procedures for setting individual department budgets.
Agreed, yep. Thank you. Just to keep reminding everyone, we are still under recording. So, as earlier agreed, we move on to item 6. This is the Social Work Services Revenue Budget Monitoring for the period ending December 2012. Report by the Director. I've got to say this is a very worrying report. Clearly the potential overspend is increasing. The findings in the report relate back to the findings made by PwC regarding a lack of financial and business management processes within social work services. Got that out of the way. John, it's your report. Is there anything you'd like to add or say at this time?
Nothing to add specifically to the report before members, Chair, but maybe if I might just say one or two words about context. I think that the budget pressure that's reported in the report is certainly a matter of grave concern, but I think it reflects what effectively is growing need for social care services in Dumfries and Galloway. The picture here of budget pressure on social care budgets is not confined to Dumfries and Galloway. A number of other Scottish authorities are reporting similar budget pressures at the same point in the financial year, and for the same reasons that we're reporting in this paper. I think the key challenge for us, and I think it does relate back to item 4, as you say, Chair, is that the information is being discussed just a little over a month before the end of the financial year rather than earlier in the financial year. In other words, I think picking up on Mr. Reevy's comments previously, the shortcomings in the information available to us, which was not allowing us to have earlier intelligence and have the engagement with members about likely outcomes sooner rather than later, where members would have the opportunity to make decisions. That's the key issue, I think, that needs to be resolved going forward by whoever. But beyond that,
thank you. I've got 2 hands up already. I've got Councillor Yen and I've got Councillor McKee. Okay, Councillor Yen.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for Director. I wonder if the Director could answer this to me. Can you explain how we find ourselves in this situation? Thank you.
Well, we are meeting increasing levels of need in a number of areas across the service. People with critical levels of need who require a response. The budget overrun reflects the excess of need over available resource. the choice open to officers would be to say we manage to the level of budget that's been set by committee and we don't need. I've said to this committee before, I say again today, if there is to be criticism of the way the service operates, I'd rather be criticised for showing a budget pressure and meeting critical need than showing a budget that was online and neglecting to meet critical need. That's all I want to say, Chair.
Thank you, John. Councillor McKee, then Councillor Wood.
Thanks, Chair. What I raise the issue of this kinship care again. You seem to forget that it was the Scottish Government that introduced this and has never yet fully funded it. Are we still putting pressure on by meetings with the Government direct, or are we working through COSLA, and what's the responses to that we're getting to COSLA, if you don't mind? Notice we've got the homeless section now. I hope that whoever gave us it, they fully funded it when they transferred it over to us. It seems to have landed with these things. And there's no mention of travel. Where do we find it, travel in this budget? The reason I'm asking is there's pool cars out there, and I've tried to hire one over a period of time and never managed. And the excuse I get is that social work have booked them all, but are not necessarily using them. And I think we need to look at how these pool cars are used, how they're booked and how they're used. And if they're not booked, are we still paying for them? And my view would be that we should be, because nobody else is getting the use of them. You maybe could clarify these points for me, please.
Okay, Director.
As far as kinship care is concerned, I'm not aware of any active lobbying activity at national level that's ongoing at the present time. This council still has in place a cross-party lobby group on kinship care, which hasn't met for some time. A matter for members to determine, how that was taken forward. So far as homelessness is concerned, I think that the real pressure for us going forward might be the impact of welfare reform. I don't think we've been sold short in terms of the amount of the budget that we have to deliver homelessness services, but we expect that there will be significant added pressure on homelessness services from the implementation of welfare reform, and that will be a concern for this committee going forward. So far as the pool cars and where travel is shown, I'm afraid I'm deficient in the detailed knowledge of that, and I might look to colleagues and perhaps Sean, Corporate Finance, might be able to assist in where that's reflected in the overall figures. I neither use a pool car nor claim travelling expenses, Councillor.
Sean, can you give us some information on what's been asked yet?
You can't see the travel budgets in here. It's an area we're developing further on the back of the PwC report. Social work are making inroads into their travel budgets, and the pool cars would be spread throughout all these individual lines. You'd have to drill into each particular one. We can, if need be, give further details on the travel side of things.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Wood, then Councillor Dick, and then Councillor Scobie.
Thank you, Chair. It'll come as no surprise to the Director to hear me once again voicing my concerns about the budget monitoring. What I have real problem with, and that is, we've seen the deficit rising from $250,000 a few months ago to its present position. What is it going to be at the end of March? And will the figure that he gives us be including the 134,000 that they have had from DG First?
John, do you want to deal with that, or do you want John to deal
with it? I could perhaps deal with the main point. I think the rise, I think when we last reported to members, I think we were reporting 500,000 budget pressure, and that's risen to 760 because of increasing numbers of people with critical needs to be met. I believe that because of the shortcomings in the information that's available to myself and my officers, I cannot give an assurance to members that this figure might not rise beyond 760, and it would be unfair and it would be unreasonable for me to try and pretend that I did. Insofar as the inclusion of other monies transferred across, and the one that you mentioned from DG First, it's my understanding that that's included in these monetary figures, and Sean's assenting, so it's already included within these figures. It's already included, yes.
Do you want to come back in, Andrew?
Yeah. So in actual fact, in real terms, we're really looking at nearly 900,000 then. Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, the figure that has been included from DG First is rightly included within social work services budget. It should always have been there. So effectively 760 is the accurate reported figure as at this point in the year at the end of December.
Okay, Councillor Dick, then Scobie, then the leader, then Councillor Blake, and then Councillor Syme.
Could I ask, just in general, I mean, assurances were given that the steps were being taken to get the budget under control. I mean, I accept what the director says about the level of demand and increasing need needs to be recognised. I think the problem is that we've never been sufficiently able to look at the budget in such a way that we know it's being delivered for best value for the pound. So why should we accept assurances again today, and what exactly has changed? How are we going to turn it round? Could I also just ask a specific one on the budget monitoring report on page 83? 83. There's a figure under children and families of other, which stands at just over, just under 5.2 million. Could I ask what this is, and would the director be able to provide us with some detailed breakdown at a later stage?
John?
I'm happy to give an answer to that last question now. I mean, that part of the table is, if you like, aside from the main budget monitoring information, which stops halfway down at the line total social work services. This is a section called further analysis of main spend areas, which is trying to bring together the main variances in one place. And what it's saying is that the total spend on children, families and criminal justice services is 16,940. That reads back to the previous information provided earlier in the paper. And what it's trying to do is to show the main variances up and down. It stops at assessment and fieldwork because that's the last of the areas where there's a significant variance. And for the rest of the budget, for the rest of the 5 million, the variance is only 108,000. So it's the totality of everything that isn't included in the 4 lines above it. I'm quite happy to spend time and go through all of them if members would like to do that, but that's the basic answer here. As to accepting assurances, I mean, I think what we've said is that we're committed to bringing the budget in line, but I'm also committed, for as long as I'm employed by this council as Chief Social Work Officer, to meeting critical needs.
Thank you. Councillor Scobie?
Yeah, Chair, I take some solace out of the remark just made by the director, and did say that as long as the director, his concern was to budget pressures, but not to put at risk those that are most in need, and we will continue to deliver those services. But there is a serious concern in here as to the number of overspend in this budget, in the current budget. And when I look at 6 of management control and how we're going to do it, then I only, I can be directed by the director. An urgent review of all, in the 3rd bullet point, an urgent review of all areas of discretionary spend. Now, if we were to take the figure that has just been suggested by Councillor Wood, of some £900,000, I think was the figure he used, then are we suggesting, or can the director advise if the discretionary budget comes anything near throughout the department to £900,000 to try and realign the budget by the end of March 2013? Because when I look at page 85 of 90 in Social Work Service Appendix 2, I see the overall budget of 81.7 and above million, and then environment again. And in one of these, and you and I sat at a meeting last Friday in terms of day centres, I did ask the question at the budget setting, you know, and that's a one-off payment, so that one goes forward, that is still contained within the budget. So, you know, there is issue in there in terms of day services, day centres, other services that the director has referred to in his remarks, that it's about delivering on critical need and everything else. Where in the advice of the director are we going to, if the budget is to be brought into line and there is no risk to the service, where are we going to achieve this?
John, have you got the questions yet? Okay.
Beg your pardon, I'll go back to the first point, page 79. I don't have the figure in my head about the total value of all discretionary grants, and Sean might be able to help with that in a moment. That line alone would not allow alignment from 760,000. There's no doubt about that. So I think you have to look at the range of bullet points which are identified in that particular paragraph, 6.1 on page 79, between them as being the opportunity for us to begin to align. And the other area which we've been focusing on has been where we can safely, i.e. without increasing risk, reduce the cost of high-cost care packages, which are where a very significant level of our current spend is committed.
You want back in, Willie? Yeah.
Please, and that's one of the areas that did come up under the budget monitoring, or rather the performance monitoring at area committee. And I will remember, and those that from the area committee, or the Wigton area committee will remember, we've asked for detail in that as to, and the question was asked at one of the other social work committee meetings where it was some, memory serves me correctly, there was a figure there anyway, I think it was about 60 in high cost, and just to think we're going to get that kind of money to bring back into line the budget would be unreasonable. And we have asked for the overall figures, not only of high cost, but all the other services within that budget head as well. So you know, what I'm looking for from the director is to give us an assurance in terms of how, you know, he intends or what the actions are to bring this back into line, or you know, because we will be, if it is, he cannot tell us, we will be on an overspend course, as is before us just now, by my interpretation. And it's really to get the confidence again that this budget can be, without affecting the high risk and the critical demand that's on the budget. And perhaps there is a lot in what Councillor Martin said, we maybe should have had that meeting to consider not only this year, but next year's budget as well.
John, is there anything you'd like to add?
I can only say, Chair, officers will do everything that we can within the measures of management control that are set out in section 6 of the report to minimise the level of projected overspend. Whether we can bring the budget in online or not, I think is a matter which we have to bring back to members when that piece of work has been completed. But I'm not going to make commitments that can't necessarily deliver on.
Thank you. Next question is the leader.
Thank you, Chair. If we look at the recommendations at 2.1, the expenditures the projections based on the known expenditure, does that include all activity that has been undertaken? Because there's a part here at the end, it's under 7.2, that we're looking through the current work that we're doing in the action plan to develop the availability of reliable service activity information. Is there anything prior to December that's maybe not been put through the system yet that we should be identifying now as a budget pressure. I agree with the director that we have to look at, if something comes in tomorrow that we need to deal with, that needs to be dealt with. And I'm accepting of that, but is there anything that's in the past that we need to actually be aware of that might not be picked up?
John?
Well, we are currently looking at a backlog of invoices within the service for care that's already been delivered. And some of that may add to budget pressure in the present financial year. We would seek to offset some of that, if not all of that, additional pressure by some of the management control measures that we've identified in section 6.
Thank you. Councillor Blake?
Thank you. My question's on Appendix 1, page 81. I think I've maybe just managed to work it out myself. I'll check. It's under Criminal Justice Services. You've got funded services, and again for prison units, just below halfway. The outturn budget is 0. And the first one is the expenditure of 167,000. Outturn forecast 0, and then the variance is 0. Is this because these are centrally funded and these will be monies coming back into the council?
That's essentially the position, Chair. I mean, these are the 100% funded services which are funded through the Community Justice Authorities. And the South West Scotland Community Justice Authority disperses that funding and we utilise that in full. So it's a kind of a 0 to 0 kind of transaction.
Okay. Councillor Syme and then Mr Scobie.
Thanks, Chair. On 4.3 agency placements, page 78, we see that the costs of the intensive fostering programme are picked up with fostering, however the programme delivers net benefits overall, and I'm quite pleased to see that. But it's quite difficult to monitor how successful it's been. I know it was sort of brought in as a pilot. I don't know, was it originally 2 families, and then I think it might have went up to 4. But I know the experience of these schemes that sometimes they don't really work. Sometimes the behavioural issues and that are just too much for foster carers. But it does make a big difference if you're saving even 2 kids for going outside private provision. We're talking about a lot of money. It's just to ask if I could have a wee report and see how the intensive fostering scheme's going. And I would imagine if it has been successful, you would want to expand on it because there's a lot of money to be saved there.
Actually, John, can we bring back a report? And
just to say yes, we'd be happy to do that.
Right. I mean, I think, John, there's 2 issues here, isn't there? There's the individual issue that you're maybe talking about here, and then there's the bigger picture. So obviously, if there's an individual issue, you can take it to John or to Jeff or whoever. If it's the bigger picture, then you're quite right. You just come back here as a briefing report in future, just exactly where we are with it. Is that what you're asking? Yeah. My understanding, we're still bound by the principles of best value because that's what we have to do, and that's obviously the best way forward for us. I would take advice from here, from the director or finance or the proper officer, if that's exactly the case.
I think you've covered it, Chair. That's the correct answer.
Thank you. Are you okay with that, John? Yeah. Thank you. Mr Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, can I return to the overspend and indeed what the director has said or advised us on, and if we could have in his report an at-risk, just try and bring some of these budget headings to line. If that is the intention, then just how at risk are some of the people that we are delivering our service to. Reference has been made to the Homeless Department and how it's now under the control of the social work. I always thought that side, the support service was always under social work budget. However, no later than yesterday, when I was speaking to one of the officers, reference was made that we're going to face even more difficult times when the bedroom tax comes in, and we are currently facing huge issues in terms of provision, what's available, and indeed budget pressures there. So we need to know what that at-risk level in the budget actually means to the service delivery, not just in terms of how we're going to rescue, what the intentions are to rescue it, but I want to know just what kind of risk is associated with that. I would like to see that in the narrative, in the contextual part, so that we can put an understanding in that in terms of what the Director has said in terms of the delivery and the critical need element within that. Turning to the 4.2, Chair, in terms of kinship carers, and as the Director has said, we have been lax in how often the cross-party working group has met. Indeed, I can't remember the last time it met, but the issue is still with us. And I think we've got to revigorate our efforts in our lobbying activity in terms of refocusing our attention. And when it comes to the recommendations, Chair, I would hope I would move that we need to reconvene as a cross-party working group to look at this, because that is forever going to be on the increase. And as has been rightly said,
well, Willie, I take your point about the cross-party working group in its entirety, but we're only here about the budget monitoring rather than the service delivery end of the thing. So that's a discussion for another time, sooner rather than later.
Chair, I'm quite happy to take your advice on this one, and with your assurance that the budget, the cross-party working group will meet, and I will not need to then move it in the recommendations, but that we do revigorate our activity there, and with your assurance, then I will not pursue that. But as long as I get your assurance that will be called in close order as soon as.
You have that assurance with the rider. It will also include all the implications of the new children's bill and everything as it comes through. We can't look at it in isolation, but you're absolutely right. It may be we need to look at that and say, is that the best way for us to represent the views, Willie? Also, if we find, yeah, that is the day, we'll do that, or does it become part of a bigger review?
Jerry, you're not putting a condition on it. Let's just meet and then we'll see where we go with it.
You've already got the commitment from me to meet at the earliest time, okay? I've got no other speakers at this moment in time. Have we? No. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Are we complete with the debate to date so far, or should I wait before I present the motion?
Unless any members got anything else they'd like to seek clarity on or ask questions on at this stage, no, we can move to. I was just getting ready to move to recommendations, but well, what does he want to say, Andrew? If it's all right with yourself, Chair, I'd like to put forward a motion to the committee that this committee notes with significant concern that projections based on expenditure to the end of December for social work services indicates a potential overspend of $760,000, despite assurances previously given by the Director that he and his management team would bring the budget into balance by the end of the current financial year. This committee finds it unacceptable that the budget deficit is likely to increase. The committee recognises the capacity of the Council's in-house finance team, instructs the Chief Executive to engage appropriate professional support, reporting to the Head of Finance to take action as necessary to bring the Department's revenue budget into recurring balance as quickly as possible. Thank you, Chair. Have you got that down in writing there, Andrew? Have you got copies? You have. Okay. Thank you very much. Can we get them round? Well, once that's been, we're talking 5 minutes, 10 minutes maximum. Okay, we'll hand them out, and have we a seconder for that motion? Is it?
Yep, Chair, can I second Councillor Wood's motion, please?
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll distribute the motion as is, round about the membership. We'll take 10 minutes and come back, okay? So we'll meet here, back in here at 1:30. Yep. We can get back to the business. I believe, Andrew, there's some negotiated changes to the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, on considering the motion we made further, we would like to remove after the figure of 760,000 all the wording from despite onto the current financial year. If that can be removed, all the rest we would like to stay as it is.
Mr. Scobie.
Yeah, I understood in the conversation I had with Councillor Wood that you had no difficulty with the part that was just going, because if that is the case, then on the third bullet point, after action as is necessary, then recognising 2.2 in the recommendation, I would ask to insert without putting service users at risk in a demand-driven budget to bring the department's revenue budget, so that it's not just a revenue issue that is driving the budget, but we recognise that this is a demand-driven budget, and that we would want to see that no person was being put at risk, as the assurances that have been given by the director and his staff. So I would ask for those words without putting service users at risk in a demand-driven budget after necessary, Chair.
I totally agree with your sentiment, Willie, but the management of risk is a statutory responsibility, which is a given. Right? We don't need it written into a motion. We respect, and any motion that has to come to be competent, as you're well aware, if we draw attention to what is in actual fact a statutory responsibility, that goes without saying, that has to be dealt with. It's the other parts of the budget that are non-statutory requirements that are the main problem here. So I would take advice on whether that would be valid or not.
Chairman, as you say, this is a given, but if Councillor Scobie wants the reassurance put in and members agree with him, I think that would be entirely competent. I don't see that being an issue, sir.
Andrew?
Yeah, I wasn't trying to sideline any shape or form. It's really a matter of I wanted you to put your own words forward, and therefore, on hearing what he's said and now that he's told the whole committee, I'm more than happy to go along with that reassurance.
John, you went in.
Yeah, it's just when it comes to bullet point 3, professional support. Just let you know what does that mean, because this is a group, Labour as a group are not prepared to sanction money for more consultants. We know in page 39, 40, we said we'll consider appropriate internal and external tools, processes and people to support the challenge, but at the present moment do not know what the costs are. And as I say, I wouldn't like to engage professional support till we know that we've not got the expertise internally.
Mr. Hassel?
I wouldn't see us bringing consultants in. This is a hands-on job, sir. This is people to actually look and go through the budget without affecting services or without affecting acute services and things like that. But this is actual people to assist. I'm envisaging this being accountants or accountancy technicians. Because clearly we don't have the capacity.
Do we have any idea what kind of costs we're talking about here?
Sir, it was the motion came forward from the administration. I'm looking at Sean. I don't know how much we pay an accountant, but 40,000 a year plus on costs. I don't envisage this being a long-term appointment either. If members are disposed to do this, this would be people in hands-on to assist with the functions. It would accelerate it. We can do it in-house, but it's going to take a period of time to do it. So, as I say, I didn't even put forward the motion, but I would envisage that if this is carried, what Paul Garrett would probably look at with me would be the possibility of bringing in some hands-on assistance as opposed to consultancy. We don't need consultants. The external auditor has already given us his views on the matter.
Sorry, Chair. So what we're actually saying is this is not to do with lack of expertise in the council. It's to do with time limits.
I think the word used in the thing brought forward by Councillor Wood is capacity. That's not expertise. Capacity is just people.
You happy with that, John? Billy?
Yeah, Chair, I remain unconvinced that there's a need to bring in any outside bodies or whatever. There surely is in the first line of that, recognising the capacity of the council. Surely there is the capacity to do that. We heard in the previous report, we heard the high standard of cooperation and service between the department and the corporate finance team. So, you know, why, if we're hearing that this is such a high standard, is there a need to bring in other or accountants or whatever it is? Then, you know, and it shouldn't be about timeline, because the timeline is set. The timeline is set between now and the end of March to bring the budget into line. A mammoth task of that, I have no doubt. But however, you know, without having to spend even more money, that it does not look as if we've got. So I think the administration has to look at, you know, what they're actually proposing here, and it is about political leadership, you know, in going forward, but not to spend more money, you know, and that's one of the things I would much, and I'm quite happy that they've accepted my extra wording, but not to be spending any more money on consultants, accountants, or whatever. It's about service delivery.
Okay,
in my mind.
Thanks, Councillor. We've actually got a motion. We've got a seconder. We've incorporated changes that were suggested to us in the recess. Jock, is there something else you want to come in?
I think it's a bit of nonsense, this asking to bring professional support in when you're complaining about an overspend of £760,000. Surely it's a case of getting our house in order. And the last motion that was carried on item 4 indicated a way forward for budget setting within this council, and not just for the social work department, for every department within the council. And I think we should go ahead with that. We recognise where we are with social work. The managers will be doing their best and are doing their best to reduce that overspend, and we should accept that and move on. To try and tie them down to that and then bring expertise in from outside. Yeah, the next meeting you'll be complaining that the overspend's got to be about £1 million because it's something you asked for in here. I'd move the recommendations, Chair.
I'll second that.
In actual fact, we can't move the recommendations because we have a motion and a competent motion on the table which takes precedent over. You want to make an amendment?
The amendment.
Okay, you want to amend the motion. Okay, so we have an amendment. Yes.
Can I ask the administration in their motion to take out the part to engage appropriate professional support, reporting to the heads of finance, so it should read, recognising the capacity of the council's in-house financial team, instructs the chief executive to take action as is necessary without putting service users at risk in a demand-driven budget to bring the department's revenue budget into recurring balance as quickly as possible. That takes out the part that we need to go externally.
Have you got a seconder for that, Councillor? That's a counter amendment, actually. Have you got a seconder for the counter amendment? No. Okay. In that case, then, we've got a motion and an amendment. Let's move to vote, Mr. Haswell.
Thank you, Chairman. The motion is by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Tate, and it is that this committee notes with significant concern that projections based on expenditure at the end of December for social work services indicate a potential overspend of £760,000. Finds it unacceptable that the budget deficit is likely to increase, and recognising the capacity of the Council's in-house finance team, instructs the Chief Executive to engage appropriate professional support, reporting to the Head of Finance, to take action as is necessary without putting service users at risk in a demand-led budget to bring the Department's revenue budget into recurring balance as quickly as possible. The amendment, which is by Councillor McKee, seconded by Councillor Martin, and that is that you adopt the recommendations detailed in the report at paragraphs 2.1 and 2.2. Am I correct? Are you ready to proceed to the vote, Chairman?
Just to send some things up, hands up for clarification.
No, it's to note my dissent, Chair.
Excuse me, there's an order. It was actually the hands up first with the leader, Councillor Tate, and then Councillor Scobie. That's okay. Leader and then Councillor Scobie.
My understanding, this is a needs-based, not a demand-based. Because somebody could demand something but doesn't need it. And I was always led to believe this was a needs-based service.
Wally, are you happy to take needs-based as opposed to demand-based? Yeah, thank you.
Are you ready to proceed to the vote, Chairman?
Having not got a seconder, could I just note my dissent, Chair?
Certainly, it's noted. Thank you. Okay, yes, you move the vote.
Right, the motion is with Councillor Woods, the amendment is Councillor McKee. Chairman.
Motion.
Vice Chairman. Leader. Councillor Blake.
Motion.
Councillor Brodie. Councillor Carruthers.
Motion.
Councillor Dempster is not present. Councillor Dick. Councillor Yen.
Motion.
Councillor McCutcheon.
Amendment.
Councillor McKee.
Amendment.
Councillor Maitland.
Motion.
Councillor Mayo. Councillor Martin.
Amendment.
Councillor Scobie. Councillor Stitt. Councillor Syme. Councillor Tate.
Motion.
And Councillor Wood. The motion is carried by 11 votes to 5 with 2 abstentions.
Thank you. We now return back to item 5. A report by the external audit on arrangements for developing and implementing a charging policy for activity and resource centres. Report by the Director Chief Executive Service. Mr. Haswell stated what he did was commission the report in accordance with the decision taken by the Social Work Services Committee. Do you have anything to add?
No, sir. Mr. Cameron Revy is here from PwC. It is really his report. Mine's a covering.
Thank you. John, is there anything you'd like to add at this stage?
Nothing to add, Chair.
Okay. Cameron, have you anything to add at this moment, or would you just be happy to move to questions?
Whichever you prefer.
Okay. In that case, then, we'll move straight to questions. All right? Sorry, Councillor Syme. Can I just remind everyone when they're voting as well to use the mic so that it's recorded, rather than just shout out. Thank you.
Well, no questions, sir. Chair. I would just like to recommend to full council that due to the errors in the March 2011 report, this report and the decisions taken did not give authorisation for a charge to be levied on ARC users.
Is that a motion?
I'll second that.
Second it.
Chairman, could I ask Councillor Syme, has he got that written down?
Yes.
Could I get a copy, please?
Is there anyone else got any questions for Mr. Ravey, the Director, or Mr. Haswell? Councillor Scobie?
Yeah, Chair, and again, you know, we had implemented and we withdrew the service charges, and I presume that to ARC members, and my understanding is we did withdraw the charges that were imposed and then withdrawn. In reporting this to full council, as the motion is clearly indicating, and there does not seem to be any dissenting voices to that, then this will be the whole report, and that indeed this committee will continue not to make a service charge on the ARCs, and I would hope that would go forward as the recommendation from or the decision of this council, this committee, sorry, Chair, that we do not charge the ARC. It's there was a wrongdoing, and it would be entirely improper if we were to do anything other. So I would hope that this committee would record that we will not be, that the wrongdoing is put right, and that indeed we will not make a charge on the ARC service users.
Yes, I mean, my understanding here, the purpose of this report today was obviously, from Mr Ravey, was to audit the processes that were actually put in place for decisions to be taken. And so I think we need a wee debate first on the processes, and then look at what Councillor Syme has proposed. We agreed with that. John, you want in?
Aye, no, as I say, I think this review has been a complete and utter waste of time. It doesn't tell us anything we didn't know. The scope of the review was far too restrictive, and anyone who read the minutes and reports of the committee could have written this report. Instead we've wasted 6 months waiting for this to come in. Like, as I say, we brought a motion, Labour Group motion, in August last year about the March report, how inaccurate it was when it came to the committee. As I say, I've got the motion, I can read out the motion here, but it's quite lengthy. Got a couple of questions I'd just like the Chair to explain why on one hand he allowed PricewaterhouseCoopers to have a wide remit when it came to the review of the financial management in item 4, but when it came to ARC charges he restricted the remit to an extent that all they could look at was the minutes. Why did he support a whitewash?
Can you repeat that?
Sorry, Chair. I'd like to explain why at the August meeting we decided we had a review of the financial management in item 4, a wide review, but when it came to the ARC charges, he restricted the remit to the extent that all he could do was look at the minutes. I can read the amendment we put forward at the August meeting, which included most of the things that were covered by that review, the review we had for PricewaterhouseCoopers.
The time we coming here today, right, in actual fact, was very clear. It was an audit trail on the committee processes. I'll let Mr Haswell speak here just in a minute, but that is exactly why they got the remit. They got the remit. But, Alec?
Chairman, you've said it all. If members look at paragraph 3.1, the second bullet point in the italics shows what the review was about. It was about member and officer decision-making processes. Decision-making processes were the reports which went to committee and the minutes of the committee decisions. That's what PwC were asked to review, and that's exactly what they've done.
Councillor Maitland, sorry, Councillor Yen and Councillor Maitland.
Thank you, Chair. I have a statement I wish to make. This report clearly highlights that members were asked to take decisions on what were highly sensitive issues without information being visible on the face of reports. This is entirely unacceptable.
Okay, Councillor Maitland.
Really, actually, the issue's been covered. We've got what we asked for, frankly, and it is very limited, but we have what we asked for, and I would suggest we just get on with it, agree with the recommendation, get on with it.
Yeah, Chair, I have no intention to repeat myself, but I think it's covered in the summary of the findings on page 75 of 190. And as I said, there was a wrongdoing, it was improperly reported, as the statement has said, and we've got now, to correct the wrong and have no charges and have it minuted such so that it's clear in it that we do not make a charge on the ARC service users.
Chairman, can I say what you've got here is a very narrow report dealing with a specific issue. If the council didn't take a decision to impose charges, as this report implies, why would you now say we're not going to impose charges? You've not taken the decision to impose charges. Plus the fact, Chairman, you will be receiving a report from the Director. I think to the next meeting, I can be corrected, Mr Alexander, but I think you'll be receiving a report on charges across social work services. That would be the time to look at any charges or non-charges in respect of ARCs. On the back of this, you've no information which would lead you to come to the conclusion we'll automatically not charge for ARCs. You've never taken a decision to charge for ARCs according to the information in this report. Plus the fact you have a full council decision imposing a moratorium.
Point of clarification, because we did take a decision and we did implement a charge to the ARC members, and then we withdrew, is my understanding. So we did take a decision. And all I'm saying is that we go forward on the back of the motion that was put forward, that it be reported, this goes to the full council, that we minute in this one, and whether it needs a motion from in terms of governance, is that we do not impose a charge so that it remains as nil, as is indeed the highlighted decision on page 75 of 190. This should have been nil pound. So, just to ratify that here today, and that goes forward as the recommendation, notwithstanding that there may be a report coming forward in the future on service charges.
Fine. I've got the first name speaker, Councillor Martin, then the leader, then Councillor McKee. Yeah.
Right, sorry, Chair. To say, this report, it certainly covers what was asked for. The thing, but as I say, we didn't, us as a Labour group, that wasn't part of what we asked for that, but there were other things here. Can I just read out? Then note that the initial advice in respect to charging for Activity and Resource Centre ARC attendance from the Quality and Human Rights Commission and Council agree that the March 2011 Social Work Service Committee report did not give authorisation for a charge to be levied on ARC users. 4. Note with concern that the Council have continued to insist that ARC charges were agreed at the committee March 2011, despite the fact that the Chair and Vice Chair of that committee at the time had no knowledge of these charges until as recently as April of that year. 5. Note that the committee is concerned that the March 2011 report contained an error that remained uncorrected for over a year, and that this error fundamentally changed the report, and note the continued concern that factually incorrect information had been released by the Council with regards to ARC charges. That's what we had in our motion. So for Councillor Maitland to say that's what we agreed with, fair enough, the administration, etc., back to Councillor Maitland, went for that before, but that we asked for more, and that report didn't give us any more than we already knew at the time. That's why we asked for more information of why these had been taken.
Okay, John, I've got the message. Right, that decision was taken, that decision's as is. Right, we just live with that and move on. Right, we're talking about today now, not what happened at the last committee meeting. So let's just move on from the past. We don't always win everything we want. Sometimes our views are different. Right. Well, this is not doing this part of the debate. This is not what this is about. Okay, I've got the leader, then Councillor McKee, and then Councillor Wood.
Chair, I think if you read through the actual report, it's quite clear that the ARCs were never mentioned in it, but there seems to be an inference, possibly, that they are part of the community-based charging. I think that's where we've got lost. I think we need to look at this in the future and actually see that the information is as fulsome as possible, so that we are getting the fullest of information to us, rather than actually, inference. And I think that's where the possible problem has arisen. And I think when papers do come to us, we need to have that reassurance. It's maybe a learning point that we can pick up, that if there is something changing as significant as that, it has to be quite clearly spelled out in the report.
If I can paraphrase what you've said, Leader, are you saying we shouldn't be placed in a position where we make a judgment of whether it should actually be crystal clear, black and white, exactly what everything is? Is that what you're saying? Okay, I think that's quite reasonable. Councillor McKee and then Councillor Wood.
Just a quickie, Chair. Unfortunately, it reflects on administration. They're no willing to listen to anybody else but themselves. As soon as we mention something, they go against it, and that's the result of this paper today.
Here, comments noted. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. I'm seeking clarification, in actual fact, because there's been a serious accusation made about whitewash. Now, I do not believe that as a committee we certainly want PwC to be thinking that they were any part of a whitewash, nor do I believe the administration was a part of any whitewash. Could we get clarification if there was a whitewash, and if not, would Councillor Martin please retract such an unsuitable statement? Thank you.
Have we any evidence of whitewash?
As I say, we've got the report here. As I say, we knew before what was coming, and as I say, the administration voted for to make it as restrictive as possible, rather than what we put forward was an amendment. So, as far as I'm concerned, it was a
Thank you. Just before any further, Councillor Smith, are you actually online on that telephone during the debate? No, I'm asking if you're actively on the air with that telephone while the debate's going ahead. Are you actively on air with that telephone, it's at your ear, when the debate's going ahead? Because we have the official system for recording, which anyone can get afterwards. Thank you. I asked you the question, were you? Councillor Brodie.
Just passed. I was going to make comments that Councillor Wood had been a bit touchy today. But
He's a big boy. He can stand it. Anyone else? Any other? Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, happy to move on the recommendations that this council, in correcting the wrong of March 2011, does not put a charge on ARC service users in 2013-14. Chair, I'm happy to move that as the motion.
I'm actually going to seek guidance, because my understanding this committee doesn't have that power today, because we have to respond back to full council. And it's our response to full council, where we can't make a motion to actually reinstate or not reinstate or whatever. It's to put forward our view of what we think should happen. That's my understanding. I'll ask Mr. Haswell for some clarification.
Just on a point of clarification, Chair, I'm responding to the report, and it's in the report here. 75 of 190 of the paper presents to the Social Work Committee in March 2000 did not make it clear that the ARC service charge was a new charge which was being implemented and not merely an increment increase. It contained an incorrect prior year comparison, providing a prior year charge of £16.50. This should have been £0. So I'm purely responding to a report that we have before us, and I wait your judgment as the Chair as to whether it is competent. I see this as responding to the document I have before me. I feel I have the information I require, and I would move a stand.
Fine, do you have a seconder? Let's move on. We have a motion. We have no amendment. The motion. Sorry, Councillor Tate?
Yeah, can I put an amendment in, please, Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This committee notes the findings from external audit with disappointment, considers that members were never informed nor made aware of proposals to change for ARC services and were therefore misled, and regrets the reputational damage caused to the Council as a consequence of the Department not identifying and managing this.
Mr. Haswell?
I'm happy to say that.
It's an amendment to the motion.
Thank you, sir. Has Councillor Tate got that written down? I'm sorry. Oh, thank you.
Have you got a seconder?
I'm happy to second.
Thanks. Councillor Carruthers, yeah.
Did I hear right that I don't have a seconder for my motion on the charging for 2013-14?
That would appear to be the case. Nobody came forward. There's a motion from Councillor McKee. Councillor Syme, seconded by Councillor, is it McKee or Martin? I think it was Councillor Martin, I think. Yeah. And a counter an amendment from your first got an amendment, there's no seconder, and then, because there was none came forward, so we've now got the first amendment from Councillor Tate. That's the process, that's where we are. John, you want in?
Sorry, Chair, as I say, it's to consider whether this committee wishes to make recommendations. Is the motions actually recommendations that we're putting forward to the full council?
Well, the minute you make the motion, then the recommendations are overridden. Right? The motion supersedes the recommendations. That's my understanding.
Is there a restriction on how many recommendations we can make to the full council?
Chair, I'm happy if the Labour would accept that as part of their motion, as an addendum. As I say, I'm happy if the Labour would accept that, and then it doesn't need to go as an amendment. I'm happy to support Labour on it.
Okay, we have a motion. We have an amendment. John, is it about...
Sorry, Chair, should we...
The motion, is it, yeah?
No, at 2.3, consider whether this committee wishes to make recommendations to the full council in relation to this external audit report. So surely, if there's got to be any vote, the vote should be on whether we make recommendations to the full council, reading that.
Bearing in mind that's only recommendations from the officer who wrote the report. Right, it's up to us to make our decision. You've actually moved a motion which supersedes these, right? And there's an amendment from Councillor Tate. Can you do it through the chair, please, and just now shout out thanks and actually use the recording system? Thank you. So, are you saying to the Labour members that you would like to add yours to theirs if they're agreeable? Is that what you're saying, Willie?
If they're agreeable, Chair, thank you.
John, are you agreeable to that? Okay. So, just for clarity, then. Have we got it all written out so that everyone can see what it is, or are we happy, ready just to go to the vote now, or what do you want to do?
We're agreeing the recommendations plus what John Symes said and what Councillor Scobie has added.
Just a minute, folks. Alec, can you give us clarity as best you can where we exactly are here, what the motion is and what the amendment is?
Thank you, Chairman. My understanding is there's the motion by Councillor Symes, seconded by Councillor Martin, was paragraphs 2.1 and 2.2 from the recommendations within the report. That's to note the findings in the letter from external audit, to note that in accordance with members' decision, these findings will be presented to full council at its next meeting, to recommend to full council that due to the errors in the March 2011 report, this report and the decisions taken did not give authorisation for a charge to be levied on ERC users, and they're then adopting an addendum from Councillor Scobie, and I need to just clarify, is this a recommendation to full council that this council does not put a charge on ERC users in financial year 2014-15? Is that, I'm looking at the mover and the seconder.
Would it be competent, Alec, to put that in as a recommendation in the motion? Under 2.3. So there anyway.
Could you elaborate a wee bit, Councillor Syme, please?
I'm looking at my
Chairman.
Chair, as a seconder, I think what Councillor Syme was meaning when he put it through for rather too early, he would have put it forward under 2.3 if the committee had decided to make recommendations to the full council. I think that's when he would have brought that through as a recommendation, because it does say recommend to full council on his amendment. So, as I say, it was just that he come in earlier. It wasn't a motion. It was actually, when it came to the recommendations, the members saying on the voting on the recommendations, if 2.3 had went there, Councillor Syme would have put it forward to recommend to full council. I think he actually said at the start of his motion, what he classed as a motion, recommend.
I just got a wee bit excited.
Right, Joe. Right, there's obviously a degree of confusion in the room, right? I'm going to suggest we take 10 minutes, get With all due respect, Councillor Brodie, this is too serious to go, oh no, right? Stand rebuke, please, because we need to get this right. And I'm saying 10, 15 minutes, whichever one of the two members are happy to go with, right? Come back with a motion, right, and an amendment. That's where we are just now. And if your motion is to move the recommendations, then that's what that is. But we need to be clear and have it written out so that we know it and everyone understands where we're going.
Right, Chair. Can we just seeking clarity here? To put a motion to full council or anything for this section to full council, we'd need to carry the recommendations. So should we ask the committee if they're willing to accept the recommendations and then look for motions, recommendations to full council after that? Would that be a way forward? In other words, do the recommendations. If everybody agrees to the recommendations, then we'll look for motions to full, or recommendations to full council.
Just incorporate that into your motion, Jock, and say we'll be back 15 minutes and we'll move on from there, okay? 15-minute recess. Come back, everybody. But just for clarity, I believe we've got a position, not quite consensus, but pretty close to it. We will move we will address the recommendations, and within that, there is an extra bit put in there. To recommend to full council that due to the errors in the March 2011 report, this report and the decision taken did not give authorisation for a charge to be levied on ARC users, and therefore no charge should be levied. And on the back of that, then the wording that Councillor Tate circulated is then incorporated into that as the extra recommendation. Right? Are we happy with that? That's the current position?
Yes. What, Chair, sorry, do you want me to? I'll move the recommendations as they are in the papers, and anything additional that comes after.
That would be very helpful
okay.
If you can do that, and then we'll go from there, okay?
Right, I'll move the recommendations.
Okay, fine. I'll do the recommendations first, and then we'll come on. Jane, if you just give me 2 seconds, would you? So the first recommendation was note the findings in the letter from PwC. Agreed. Note in accordance with the members' decision, these findings will be presented to full council at its next meeting. Right. Consider whether the committee wishes to make recommendations to full council in relation to this report from external audit. That's agreed. Right. Now, on the back of that, we've then got the additional bullet point 2.4 from Councillor Martin. That is recommend to full council that due to the errors in the March 2011 report, this report and the decisions taken did not give authorisation for a charge to be levied on ARC users, and therefore no charge should be levied. Right? And then on the back of that is a 2.5 actually, right? Is that we note the findings from external audit with disappointment. We consider that members were never informed or made aware of proposals for charges and were therefore misled. And the final bullet point regrets the reputational damage caused to council as a consequence of the department not identifying and managing this. Are we happy that's exactly where we are at this moment in time? Jane, you want in now?
Yes, I just want to ask, the 2.4, Councillor Martin's suggestion, I just want to be absolutely clear. What's the tense? Are we talking about the recommendation to council is that they should not be or should not have been? Let's be completely clear about this.
My understanding is should not have been, because the future charging policy, that we've not made that decision yet as a council, right. And that will come forward in the near future. I mean, to be fair to everyone, we got the COSLA guidance about 2 weeks ago, right? So it would be unreasonable to actually move forward on that basis today. So it's should not have been, I think. Are you happy with that, John? Yeah, okay, thanks. Hey, do we have consensus? Willie?
No, Chair, I don't think we have consensus across, because they should not be, and I did say 2000, I know Governor Zalek said 2014-15, but I'm saying 2013 and 14, that there should not be a charge, you know, in wronging, correcting the wrongs of this council, so there should not be.
Well, I understand the sentiments where you come from, Willie, but in actual fact, it's covered within what we're doing here, because there is a moratorium. There is a moratorium here just now for this financial year.
Chair, that's not what I said. I said for 2013-14. So I did. And I'm quite happy if that's enshrined or inherent in what you are saying, that there will not be a charge. I'm quite happy to go along. You're already on tape as saying that.
No, what I'm actually saying is the 2013-14 charging policy hasn't been decided. As I say, officers only got sight of the cause of guidance 2-3 weeks ago, and that will be coming forward in the very near future to this committee, I would assume, and from that probably full council. So we can't make a commitment just now until that's obviously been looked at, see what the guidance is. It's okay, well, no, and see what the guidance is and everything else, because we need to take in that we're either in COSLA or we're not in COSLA, and take it forward from there. So I'll move on. I mean, are you inconsistent?
Point of clarification, Chair, because I understood and I gave the piece of paper to Councillor Martin, and that would refer to 2013-14. So I understood that they accepted that as an addendum to their motion. I'm quite happy if that is the case, and as Councillor Maitland is saying, it's the tins. And I'm saying that the charge will not be, and that takes into account the 2013-14. I'm happy if Labour had accepted that and to move forward on that, Chair.
Is everyone, just for clarity, Alec?
Chairman, that's, you've changed the word be to have been with Councillor Maitland. Can I say to members, I've already said, you will have a report coming forward. I would ask members if they have sufficient information before them today to take a decision into the future in relation to charging policies on social work services. The report deals with a situation over the past 2-3 years. There is a moratorium on charging for ARC in place as per the Council's instruction in August. That moratorium remains in place until the councillors determine otherwise. But you must advise me if you have sufficient information before you today to enable you to commit no charges in, and I apologise to Councillor Scobie, I got the wrong, I was in the wrong financial year. I was 2 years ahead in 2013-14. It's for members to determine if they have enough information before them today to determine that. There will be a full report coming back. There is a moratorium in existence.
Okay.
I'm happy with the explanation for Labour that their addendum as put forward, or the consensus is in perpetuity. So I'm quite happy with their explanation. So this is in perpetuity. So I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah. No, sorry, it's not your gift for in perpetuity, Willie, with all due respect. No, no. That's no, because we, as a council, the policy only applies to the end of this financial year, my understanding, and a new one will kick in after that. So we are not in a position, because we do not have the information in front of us, to make a decision about funding arrangements next year. It's as simple as that, Willie. Right? That's where we are. Just live with it. Right?
Could I just point out on clarification that there was no adjustment to this year or to 13-14 budget, that the same budget would carry over in terms of the overall, and we never got a chance, as was said earlier in the meeting. So that was my reference to 2013-14. Now, I'm quite happy to accept the explanation from that it's in perpetuity, but I'm clear that it's 2013-14.
Okay, so we have consensus as was agreed, or have we not? We don't.
Chairman, you don't have consensus.
No, because we're not funding this in perpetuity, right? No, I know you didn't. No, and what I'm actually very clear here is that words aren't going to be put in your mouth by one individual member, because that appears to be what the situation is. And we
Chair,
are...
can you name who you're talking about? Because if it's myself, I would take... I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth. What I'm saying is, and I'm happy to, on the explanation, the potential for it to be in perpetuity, I'm clear that I'm dealing with 1314. So I would ask you to, if it was myself that you're referring to there, to withdraw that statement. Quite happy with someone else, but you name the person.
Point of order.
Yes,
Point of order, Chair. I think our motion was, or recommendation was put forward on the basis that this committee was making recommendations to full council. And the discussion, with all due respect to Councillor Scobie, the discussion on that recommendation is for full council, it's not for here today. And I would suggest that it was the same with this young boy. Graham Tate, his motion was on the same basis. I know for discussion today, but for discussion at full council.
I take your point, and the point of order, you're absolutely right. We can move forward. Okay. No. We are where we are. I thought we had a position agreed, right? With one exception. Are we happy to accept the recommendation, which we've already agreed, obviously, and are we happy to accept the first recommendation, which was the one from Councillor Martin, right? 1B1, yes. Are we also happy to accept the recommendations that were brought forward by Councillor Tate? Yeah, thank you.
Me taking away my interpretation, it's referring to no charge in 1314. I'm happy with that.
Chairman, the committee needs to clarify exactly where they are on this. Councillor Martin has the information I got from Councillor Martin reads as follows: recommend to full council that due to the errors in the March 2011 report, this report and the decision taken did not give authorisation for a charge to be levied on ARC users, and therefore no charge should be levied. That's the wording. That is that correct, Mr. Martin? So that's the wording. There's no reference to 1314. But is there a forward commitment?
I take your point, and that then is a decision to be taken when the proper report comes forward with the proper information, right, so that we can make a proper informed decision, rather than making decisions on the hoof like this, which quite frankly, in such an important area, is just simply unacceptable, right? So we are where we are. So are we agreed on the bullet point as brought forward by Councillor Martin? Yes. Have we agreed on the bullet point brought forward by Councillor Tate? Is there any dissent, or is there any... Jane?
Yes, I'm sorry, but I want to be completely clear about what I am agreeing to. I am not in any shape or form wishing this committee to look as if it conceivably could be making a forward commitment when it comes forward to full council. So you can go whichever way you want, but I will agree with all the wording except where it says where it should not be charged, it should have been charged. Should be. So the word should be have been. I think Mr. Haswell understands what I am trying to say.
I think, Jane, that John actually agreed that that's what it had been, and that was accepted by everyone as part of the corridor meeting.
Chair, this is not. It's not a commitment. It's a recommendation. Just as I say, it's up to full council to make any commitment.
That's absolutely right. Leader, you wanted in. Okay, thank you. Ali, can you give us try and give us what we've got here?
Chairman, there's a difference between the word be and the word have been. Be implies future, have been implies past. You've been told that you're getting a report forward to this committee in a month's time regarding, or 2 months' time regarding, well, it'll have to be within a month, regarding charges for social work services delivery. Are you saying that if that report comes forward and there's any reference to anything in relation to ARCs, you've already committed that you're not going to do anything about it? You're not. What I've said to members already, sir, is my question to you is, do you have sufficient information before you today to commit yourself not to do something in a month's time? In a month's time, members will have the opportunity of debating whatever the report looks like. My question, and this is purely in terms of safe decision-making, it has nothing to do with the principle or the policy or anything like that. It's got to do with safe decision-making. Are you in a situation where you have sufficient information to say, we are not going to charge? Because can I remind you, once you take a decision, something countermanding that decision, you must have good reasons for countermanding a decision that you've taken. So can I just be clear that members understand that that's what they would be doing?
Mr. Haswell, my understanding was crystal clear that John amended it should not have been imposed. And am I correct in that, John? Right. So that is what we're moving forward. Okay.
Standing to the amendment, Chair, the not have been, but the word that was read out should be.
You don't have a seconder, or do you have a seconder?
That's
no,
what I'm
sorry.
asking.
We move on then. Okay.
Is there a seconder, Chair? I didn't quite hear that.
Have you got a seconder?
Putting that as an amendment.
I'm saying do you have a seconder? No. Okay, we move on then. So we have broad consensus in the hall. Do you want us to go through a vote? Or do we no need to? Okay? Right. So it's all agreed, okay? Right. We one exception. Yes, noted, Wally. It will be recorded.
Can I note my dissent?
It will be, all right, yeah. Okay, we'll move on to item 7. Redesign the Community Justice consultation. Report by the Director. John and Alan, I'm sorry I've kept you so long, Alan, but John, for you to comment first, if there's anything you'd like to add, and obviously Alan's here for expert input.
Nothing to add, Chair. I'm happy to respond to questions. I expect that Alan might probably be the best person to do that.
Alan, is there anything you'd like to add at this minute, or are you just quite happy for questions?
No, the report sets out recommendations in the context in which the consultation has been set out by the Scottish Government, and the timetable for that consultation and the decision to be taken by the Scottish Government.
My understanding, Alan, that this is part of the process that will then feed into the strategic partnerships response on behalf of Dumfries and Galloway Council, am I right?
Yes, the expectation is that the, not so much today, but the member seminar on the 26th of March and the staff meeting on the 1st of March will start to form some of the contribution from this council to the strategic partnership that meets on the 28th of March, with also the opportunity for elected members to get a ticket for the public event on the evening of the 18th of April. If you follow the link that's referred to in the report, you'll be able to get a ticket. But it is a ticket-only event, although I'm not sure how many tickets have actually been taken up as yet.
Okay, thank you. So it's open for questions. Councillor Dick.
I think just to say that the most sensible option is option B, supported by the causal view. Be happy enough to recommend move the recommendations with that option.
Yeah. Dennis, do you like in?
Yeah, Chair, I would be more than happy to second that, but having seen this at close hand several years ago, I think it's going to be much easier to run something locally and much more efficient than it was the system that was in place then, so I would have no hesitation whatsoever in seconding that motion.
Okay, well, we have recommendations in front of us. Are we happy to move to recommendations? Yep. Okay, so recommendation 3.1 is note the three options outlined as detailed in paragraph 3.21. Note the data consultation event being organised by COSLA as detailed in paragraph 3.2.6. Note that a member seminar will be held on 26th of March to consider the Scottish Government consultation prior to the event being organised. Elected members as detailed in paragraph 3.2.4. 6. Note the outcomes of that seminar will be reported back to the Social Work Services Committee on the 25th of April 2013 to inform the Council's response to the consultation. And 7. Note that the Dumfries and Galloway Strategic Partnership will submit a joint response which will incorporate the Council's formal response as detailed in paragraph 3.2.5, noting that the Council could choose to submit a separate or additional response to the consultation if it so wishes. So, we agreed? Okay, thank you. Move on to item 8. The Director's 6-monthly assessment of business plan performance. John, is there anything you'd like to add to this? Or?
Nothing to add, Chair.
Thank you. We just want to move straight to any questions. Councillor Stitt.
So on page 159 about homelessness, I see it's not measured for half years. I think after listening to the Welfare and Reform seminar on Monday, I think there could be a serious of homelessness coming in the next 6 months, so it would be possible to have 6 monthly reports.
John, I think that's actually quite a reasonable suggestion, given no one really knows what the implications are going to be. We've got worst-case scenarios and we dreads and what things could be. And I think you're right, we need to get that on a regular basis. I mean, is it possible, John? Is it putting too much...
Invite Heather to comment, Chair.
Yeah, Heather, go ahead.
Okay, the homelessness indicators are our statutory performance indicators, so we report on those on an annual basis. But what we can do is look at how we can break them down for you by 6 months. So, I mean, the next report that we do back, of course, would be the end of year report, which would actually give you the annual report. But we could certainly look at whether or not we can, before then, bring you those particular figures out, if that's helpful.
Okay, you happy with that yet? Jane?
Thank you. It was with respect to the performance indicator about the percentage of staff who completed an annual performance development review. And I noticed that we are at 35%, and I just wondered how we are getting on with this, because it does strike me as it's absolutely critical that we have these reviews. And I would like to know whether we are actually increasing the pace of that review.
Heather?
Yes, I mean, you'll appreciate that the half-yearly report takes you up between April to September. So we did have a look at what our progress was on this particular one post that. So, I mean, I can report that up to this point in time, I think up to about the end of January we were running about 45.1%. So we're seeing that steadily grow. We've a number of people are really actively engaged in doing their PDRs. We're waiting to see most of them come through the system to be logged, etc. So we should see by the end of this financial year that steadily increasing further towards the target. So we think it's on track and should be, hopefully, the end of year report that is being well developed.
Thanks. Just a rider to that. Will any of the staff fall behind in their CPD requirements for their new registration or re-registration?
No. The CPD requirements for people's registration, in terms of social work registration in particular, is something that as individual social workers we take personal responsibility for. So it's a responsibility you share with the service, as it were, and you would look very clearly to make sure that your CPD was up to date. There's a whole range of training that supports that, etc., and that's then fed in through your PDR process, whereby you can evidence that that's actually happening.
It's in relation to the page 167 of 190, the number of adults accessing telecare. The target, is that the year target of 27%, in which case you're not far away from it for the full year. Is there sufficient capacity in the Put New First programme to actually roll this out? Because this is an important strand where we're actually moving away from face-to-face to telecare. And I think the telecare is something we need to do in the future because of preventative work. Because when you saw the figures that showed care need going up and resources going down, it was a stark contrast. And will we be able to hit this and possibly exceed this target in the future or within this year?
Yeah, there are a couple of things there. One is that, yes, even beyond, again, this report, a bit like the PDRs, we can see that it's moving beyond. In fact, I think it has actually now turned green, so that in the end of year report, it should report that. I think it's a key area in terms of how we shift our practice around that move towards sort of more early intervention and prevention. And we're working with, this is a joint piece of work now with Customer and Community Services, whereby they lead on the delivery of telecare. And we're working together with them and the Put New First team to say, how can we sort of, in a sense, move this up and ratchet it up really, so that we begin to really put it in almost as the first port of call. And as you're doing any assessment, you're saying, well, could we use some level of telecare to support someone? Would that be a suitable way to go forward, so that it becomes almost part and parcel of what we do, rather than as an additional? And then we need to see how the modelling that needs to happen alongside that then would be how we can demonstrate that brings down other costs.
Thanks, Heather. Anyone else? Mr. Dick.
Thanks, Chair. Just on the percentage of staff completing an annual performance development review, are you confident that we're looking at 100% done within this year? And I'm not entirely sure why the target's only 50%.
Again, Heather, leading that. Can you answer that, Heather? Yeah? No? John?
Yeah, I'll happily answer.
Yeah.
That's okay. I think what we're trying to be really clear about is it's really important to get to that 100% target. Whether we can get to that in this financial year is probably quite challenging. And that's the bit about this is rolling out a new way of doing our PDRs. So I suppose the 50% is we hope is achievable, but we would hope to get beyond that. And certainly if we didn't get to the 100% by the end of the financial year, it shouldn't be too far into the next financial year before we would be there really. And we should have achieved it.
Thank you. Anybody else? I might need to move straight to recommendations now then, if there's nothing else. No other questions for the officers. Okay, we'll go straight to recommendations then for item 8. Members are asked, 1, to review the overall summary. We've done that, obviously, as outlined in Appendix 1. 2, scrutinise the exception report, which we've done in Appendix 2, and consider the actions proposed are adequate to improve performance. And 3, agree the proposed amendments to the performance information for social work services 2012 to 15 business plan as detailed in Appendix 3. You agreed? Good. Thank you very much.
Point of order.
Yes, John.
Every committee is the same, but could you arrange for coloured papers to put in? There's not many of them, but could you arrange for the coloured ones to put in instead of the black and white? Thank you. I'll leave it with you.
Well, I personally can't arrange for the job, but I'll nudge Mr. Haswell here and see if that can be done. I'll learn from a master joke.
Chairman, when we put out the sets of papers, they're printed on a roll, so to speak, and we don't have the facility to do that. But what I can arrange is for separate papers. A lot of committees that actually happens where you get a separate paper issued, which is a coloured copy, and we'll arrange for that for this committee.
Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll move on to item number 9, Social Services Capital Programme. Again, John, your report, but I see Peter's here as well, obviously, to answer any questions. Sorry, Councillor Blake.
It's just asking governance advice in relation to 3.3.3, Dobiti Day Centre. When this came to the committee for approval, I declared an interest in it, not only because I was a member of the Day Centre Management Committee, but my own house directly overlook this, and I may or may not have a view if it goes to planning. So it's in that respect whether or not, I appreciate it's just an update report, but it's whether or not guidance, whether I could remain here.
I think you've advised your fellow members that you have that interest. I think this is an update report. It's a very small part of the report, so you may feel comfortable just not to discuss that particular aspect of the report, but if there are other parts of the report you want to discuss, I think that would be fair.
Okay, John, have you anything?
Sorry, sir. Sorry, Chairman. We will record that for you, Councillor Blake. Councillor Blake, we will record that for you so that you're aware of it.
Thanks, Alec. Okay, John, is there anything you'd like to add at this moment in time?
Nothing to add, Chair. I'm sure Peter will be able to answer detailed questions.
Okay, are we ready to go to detailed questions? Councillor McKee?
3.3.1, criminal justice community workshops. How are we intending works that were not compliant with Scottish building standards?
Peter, can you help?
I don't have the detail of that, but I believe it was to do with things called Section 6, which is to do with insulation standards, because these are relocatable units, and they were made in England, which is a different building regulation system than we have, but that has been remedied since.
When are you going to learn Scottish is best?
Can we quote you on that? Joe, can we quote you on that, Joe? Thank you very much. Right.
Except for the government.
Anyone else? Councillor Syme.
Again, on community service workshops, on 3.31, talking about the report will advise members on the potential need for an Upper Nithsdale facility, and I hope that can be quite positive, because on that, if Upper Nithsdale have people that are in the project, and there's work to be done up there, they actually got to transport them down to Dumfries, and if they're doing a job in Kirkconnell, they take them back up the road again, which I take will be quite a bit expensive, more than anything else. So it would be good to have some kind of facility up there, and been working with George Moffat on some projects recently, and they've really been very helpful, but it would be handy if we had a base up there. And also, if you don't mind, Chair, on 3.3.5 and the residential childcare facility, I think at a time when we're doing a review council properties and buildings, these private providers can come in and buy an old house or an old school or an old church or something and have it up and running in a year, as long as they've got the interior done to health and safety specs. I think that's the way we should be looking, because these things they seem to go on for a long time, and there again the cost has risen again. When these providers can have a bit up and running in about a year at a fraction of the cost, do you don't think we should be looking at that idea as well, especially at a time when we're going to be identifying properties?
John, I'll double question here, obviously. Alan, can you answer the first one, and maybe Peter can give us a comment on why we do what we do in terms of rather than convert old buildings? Alan first, yeah.
In relation to the community payback workshop facilities and the review of the workload and demand that's coming from Upper Nithsdale, the original project included a commitment to look at what we'd provide within Upper Nithsdale, and as I said to the last committee, we will only be looking at the current workload and what we need to have in place up there, and to bring back recommendations to committee in April.
The figures got down a bit. Could you tell us how many there is in that area at the minute? Is there?
For a variety of reasons, the figures in Upper Nithsdale are fairly low. The last time I looked at figures, there were less than 10 people subject to community payback orders with unpaid work requirements. But we're not willing just to take a snapshot. We want to look at over the piece, because this is a developing picture. And we need to make sure that we take into account not just a simple snapshot over 1 month or whatever, that we look at a period over 3 years, to ensure that we have the appropriate facility in the appropriate place. It's one of the reasons, for example, that we changed the specification for the Annan workshop with the authority of committee, because we looked at the figures over the piece.
Again, Chair, it's just the way it's worked. I mean, if we were wanting them maybe to do snow, winter resilience up the road, they still have to come down to Dumfries and then go back up again if we're wanting them to do that, so it kind of defeats the purpose.
Can I reassure Councillor Syme that we will not take any action independently, that we will be bringing any recommendations in terms of what's happening in Upper Nithsdale back to committee. We simply want to make sure we've got the facility that meets the requirements up there, and we recognise the commitment that both Councillor Syme and Councillor Dempsey have given to supporting community service in the past and the community payback unpaid work requirements. And we look to ensure that we can, wherever possible, across Dumfries and Galloway, have people undertaking unpaid work requirements within their local communities.
The second part of your question, I think, was about new over refurbish.
The expense when you build.
Peter, can you pick that up? Yeah.
If I could give you a slightly alternative view to, I understand exactly what you're saying about reusing existing assets. Quite often, and almost all the time, anything you have to do is a matter of compromise in existing buildings, in particular in schools, which is what I've been working on recently. But a lot of the office ones, we're looking at some rationalisation, and there are compromises have to be made because they are existing buildings. To try and be positive about this as well, this is a brand new building. It is purpose made. It's been designed not by architects, it's been designed with social work services. It's also been viewed externally from other authorities and nationally. And I think there's a queue of other organisations who want to come and actually view the facility. And I would imagine something very similar to this facility will exist in several different places. So in some ways, it actually being a new building has been actually very fortuitous for this authority.
Thanks, Peter. I've got Councillor Tuckfield and the leader.
Thank you, Chair. Peter, I'd just like to add and ask you, the problems that have been established in the library in Stranraer, will that impact on any of the movements of staff? I'm thinking particularly the George Street lease terminates in June. Will everything be ready for all the move around?
The work that's currently been undertaken in the library is actually to do with the replacement of the heating system. It's a 4-week programme. It will have no effect on the office ration.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you.
Leader.
It's with regard to 3.3.4, the traveller site in Cullen. A number of condition issues have been highlighted. I don't think it's that long since we've actually been in there and actually upgraded some of the facilities. I know the ground is like that. Is there any other issues that are causing the condition to be bad? Another thing is, are we over-providing? Because my recollection was when we had a previous report between Cullen and Glenluce, we have an over-provision of facilities. And are we keeping that over-provision in place with investing in these?
With regard to travelling people's strategy, we've had discussions, which is why you will find that Barlockup in Glenluce has had a very limited investment, because the current view appears to be that Barlockup might not be actually required in the future, and our focus may well be on the Glenluce area, on the Cullen area, and I'm sure most people in the place are well aware of the ground conditions in that particular site. But again, we will not invest in those sites, any asset, without evidence. And one of the parts of the evidence gathering is numbers of current use and numbers of projected use, which is part of the strategy.
Thank you. Councillor Maitland.
Thank you. I just wanted very briefly to ask about the list at the end of the report about the timings. I mean, I know, for example, that the social work staff have already moved out of St Cuthbert, and I just wondered if you could whiz down and say dates. Captain.
Woodbank is complete. Buccleuch Street is complete. The 52A, we are currently working on that at present with the Criminal Justice Service. Dar Road is complete. George Street in Stranraer, its lease complete in June of this year. We are pushing at present all directors to have everything concluded by the end of March. That one in particular, as it says there, a slight edge if we have a bit of leeway if we require it. The Penham one will be within the next year. There are a number of issues that we are looking at Penham, and we might have a different approach rather than just moving people out.
Thank you. Anyone else? Say, Councillor Dick.
You're confident about the lease buildings, the Bay House, George Street and Lewis Street, on the basis that our budget saving is predicated on this move?
The simple answer is yes.
Thank you. Have we any more questions? Okay, can I move to recommendations then? Thank you. Members are review the overall summary of performance. Sorry, I'll start again. Members are asked to agree the current position of the Social Work Services Capital Programme for 2012-13 is indicated in Table 1, Item 3.2.1. Agreed? Thank you. I move on to Item 10, which is the minute of the subcommittee meeting of the 10th of January. It's a noting thing. Are we happy to note? Agreed. Thank you. Item 11, the minute of the Older People's Consultative Group on the 28th of August. Again, it's for noting. Are we happy to note? There are no other business being put forward as urgent. However, we did say earlier on there would be a briefing on the meat supply by John and an update on where we are with that. John, I believe you've got some sort of briefing note or something, have you?
There are hard copies which can be distributed to members if you're agreeable to that.
Yeah, do you want to do that just now, or do you want to paraphrase and then leave it for members to take in later? Are you quite happy? Are everyone quite happy just for John to give us a verbal report and then take a paper copy away with us? Yeah, okay.
I can give a very, very short statement in terms of both in regard to the meals which are delivered hot and also to those frozen meals which are commissioned by Social Work Service for use. There's very clear assurance that there are no difficulties in terms of contamination with horse products. We have a clear statement from the supplier of the frozen foods, a single supplier that's used for that purpose, and in relation to the meals that are prepared principally through school kitchens, but sometimes through day centres, we also have assurances from each of those kitchens as to the sources of the meat that they use and the safety of the product and the lack of contamination. But I'd be more than happy to respond to any questions that members have when they've had a chance to look at the briefing in more detail, Chair.
Okay, I mean, we're no informal session here, so we can do one whichever way you want. If you want to ask individual questions, or if you want to take away the briefing note and want to go back into John with emails, things you're unsure about, I'm happy to go either way you want here. John.
You know, if a day centre, John, you know, they have their own provision and their own play. How can we ensure that where they're getting their stuff from and that it's free? Because they do that themselves independently, you know, buy stuff in.
Well, we in the briefing note, when members get a chance to look at it, you'll see that we have actually referred to a number of those day centres who do provide that service. And what we've done is we've actually gone to them for an assurance as to where do they source fresh products, and they've all given assurances on that, including naming the businesses or the butchers, for example, that they source the material from. There are one or two, I think, that have still to respond to us, but we will provide that more detailed information later. But we do actually have that statement of assurance from each of these centres, if that helps, Councillor.
Right, thanks, John.
As a suggestion, we have a paper copy here. I'm actually going to suggest now that, John, if we can email every councillor so that they're all aware of what's happening. Yes, all 47. Okay, agreed with that? Right, happy? I'd just like to thank you all very much for your attendance. Obviously, today it's been a long day, and thank you very much.